right. Hopefully we're live on Twitch as a bunch of old grognards are trying to get this whole thing to work out here. I have no idea if it's working or not, so we're going
Get
to
it on
see. We're
Twitch.
going to see. That's right. Get it on Twitch. We're on Twitch now. Okay, Curry, are we on Twitch? Can you tell?
Says we're going.
Can you hear me?
It's a new TSR module.
It's a new TSR module.
Get
That's
on
right.
Twitch.
So here we are, Mages and Sages podcast. We here with our usual crew. We actually have two new people here today. George is down under, so apparently it's next week to him at midnight, so he couldn't show up, being that he's in Australia. I can't figure the time thing out for him. But we do have, huh?
He's trapped under a drop bear.
He's trapped under a drop bear. That's right. Look out. Oh, so we have Grant here with us, who is an old TSR guy and our Wizards of the Coast. He did some modules and stuff back in the day, and of course Matt Forbeck, the man of the hour, with his Shotguns and Sorcery, which I have right here. My little signed copy of Shotguns and Sorcery.
Good man.
That's right. Well, tell us a little bit more about it because you haven't said enough.
Shotguns and Sorcery is, I haven't said enough here today.
That's right. That's right.
Shotguns and Sorcery is the setting I came up with many years ago. It was originally for 3rd edition. And then I ended up writing a bunch of stories and novels for it. But essentially and then we came out with a Cipher Assisted edition, and then we got a 5th edition version that I wrote with my son Marty, who's 24, is now doing a lot of writing with me because even though I've tried to set a bad example for him, it didn't seem to take. And so he's continuing to follow my footsteps, for whatever silly reasons. But essentially it's a fantasy world where there was a zombie apocalypse that took over the entire planet, except for one area where the free peoples gathered and said, "Hey, dragon, could you keep the zombies off us for a while we build a wall around this place?" And he said, "Sure, as long as you put me in charge." So the Dragon Emperor rules Dragon City that's been protected from the zombies for 500 years now. And you're one of the brave adventurers who has either been born or brought to this place, and now has to figure out how to make a living or make a killing, as the case may be, inside of the Dragon City. So it's all good fun. We just fulfilled the Kickstarter. I'm waiting on one of my other sons to do the virtual tabletop stuff, which he's like this close to. And then as soon as he's done, then we'll release it to the public. So we want to make sure the Kickstarter backers got everything they had been promised before we released it to the public. And that's the one last bit we got to go.
And that's me. I was one of the Kickstarter guys. That's right. Live on the air, if you remember, right? I pushed you over the $23,000 mark.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that was great. No, it's the guys over at Shard Tabletop says, "We'll do it for free." And I'm like, "Well, I can pay my son here to do it, and he'll have some fun, and he'll learn some skills, and then went to college. What the hell are you going to do?" And,
right.
He won't learn anything there.
Things like grades get in the way, and parties and girls and all that good stuff. So it's
did they have girls at American colleges?
No, I don't know. Really, it's hard to tell.
The occasional.
Okay. Pretty sure. There's actually more girls than boys at American colleges these days. So.
The occasional girl, I think, don't they? Yeah, it's like 8 to 1, at least it was when I was at school. Of course, all those 8 never found me. So
depends on the school you're going to. Pat was originally up at Stout, which was more like 2 guys to every girl, and now he's at Whitewater, which is more the other way around. So
right. So y'all keep talking here. I'm going to work on the stream here. Apparently the sound's not going through, so y'all keep chat amongst yourselves.
We're just bullshitting. Right?
Yeah.
Getting you guys ready for Gen Con? We're already doing Gen Con prep over here, which is kind of
yeah. Well, we had to submit our events, but of course they are heavily fictionalized, as in what you send in bears no relation to what's going to happen at the table.
Oh yeah.
Today.
Oh, so it's like a novel outline. How about that?
Yeah. You've done these before. You know how this works.
Oh yeah.
Now there's this thin thing. We're like, "It's going to be exciting and amazing. What's it going to be about?" I don't know. We haven't figured that shit out yet. Yeah, we'll get to that point. So.
Yeah, at least I don't have Lorraine leaning on Jim and Jim leaning on the rest of the design staff, saying we've got to have playable demos for everything, and they can only be 10 minutes long, so you can do 5 in an hour, and that means we get 200 done in the convention. And it's like
whip crackers, man. Gotta watch out.
Oh yeah.
200 done in a convention. Isn't that
sweet? Ed, are you back on the circuit then? Kind
of. Sort of. So this year, Gary Con in a week. I mean, I leave on Friday to film another top secret project. A Destiny of Worlds Mana sequel. And then Gary Con, and then local cons, and then CanCon, which is Canadian Science Fiction and Fantasy in Ottawa. And then Phantasm, which is local Peterborough again, and then a bunch that I may say no to, and then Gen Con and Gamehole Con this year. I'm easing back into it because I still have a day job, and they still go, "Oh, Ed, do you have to go away again? I don't know who's going to run the desk because and I don't want to upset them because it is a library, a high stress environment. I mean, lives depend on this, and or at least theirs do. And
do libraries still fine people? I'm curious.
Ours doesn't. The library board decided to do away with fines because what happens is people accrue huge fines, and then they just keep the books and never show up again.
Yeah.
And you lose all your books. So if you're smart, you let them off the fines, and then they come back to the library and steal some more books. I mean,
well, see, we've got that too of the library I'm with. There's no fines, but after 3 months of having something checked out,
yep,
you will get charged the replacement cost of the book.
Yes,
which generally locks your account until you've either paid it or returned the book.
Yeah, we do that too. Yeah, it's libraries are kind, thoughtful, and whatever. Libraries are struggling with the new digital age.
Yeah,
they may not all admit they are, but they all are.
Yeah, it's too easy to not go over to the library now. You just download stuff, find it online, or whatever else.
Yeah, that's right. So the library offers you all those services, and nobody knows how to use them, least of all the librarians. And then you get these plaintive phone calls. Well, I'm somewhere on the internet, and it's asking me to enter my card. What's my card number? And you go, oh, how do you manage? Look, you drove a car, didn't you, this morning? Okay, how did you do that? Oh, I don't know. My husband usually drives while I sleep behind the wheel. Oh, okay.
There you go. Just like right now.
Oh.
Our local library does like tech for seniors and stuff like that. I'm like, maybe I should send my dad there. That's why most of my interactions with my father are like, this iPad's not working. I'm like, well,
Did you swipe right? Yeah.
If you try turning it off, turning it back on again, right? So.
and you see, you do that to a library patron, and immediately the answer is, how do I do that?
Exactly.
And you say there's the power button. Oh, which of these buttons is the power button? And you think to yourself, that's legitimate because it's a heavily Zen design. Nothing's labeled. Whereas when we were little kids, because see how old I am, everything came from Germany and it was brushed, burnished aluminum. And everything was labeled. Everything was a knife switch with click stops. It was ever so much easier for human beings to use if they didn't understand it, because they could literally push stuff and eventually it would happen. And instead, it's sort of like, well, you're already ruler of the universe. You know how to do this. Guess what? Most human beings don't.
Now they supposedly intuitive, and it is if you know what you're doing to start out with, but almost nobody reads the damn manual anymore.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Come on. You wouldn't want to keep it that way because German engineering never allowed things to go to 11.
Yes.
Can y'all hear it now?
I can hear you guys, but
you can hear.
I can hear you.
The
they
voice
say they
from
can hear a
above.
little bit, so y'all keep talking. Keep talking. I'm working on it.
That's right. Blah 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 blah. Murmur murmur.
It's not a major. Let's
the
go
forehead of doom. Oh no!
It's not mages and sages. If Jeff isn't fiddling with tech, it isn't mages and sages. So we should ask questions. We should just go.
I hurt. So maybe and I bleed. Okay.
Hey. So I'm a question guy. I love asking questions. So Matt, this is your, shotguns and sorcery. Where'd the idea come from in the first place?
It's just because I was a huge fan of like Raymond Chandler and J.R.R. Tolkien, right? So two things always got me were high fantasy and noir detective tales. So I thought, what would happen if I tried to mesh those two together, right? And basically take a fantasy world that you would recognize like a D&D type fantasy world and advance it like 500 years. So they've got, all sorts of different technology, but it's all based upon magic. So if you walk into a room, you tap the wall and the lights come on above. If you want to take a ride from one part of the city to another, you put your arm up and a flying carpet comes down, guy negotiates with you for your rates and you're off to where you got to go, right? But then have these dark little shadowed areas, you have to be the man who walks the mean streets so that without being mean himself, so you can actually have these wonderful stories that you tell about. And I always just like that attitude more than I like the "have at thee," kind of shit. So, a little bit more grounded, but still its own kind of fantasy, very pulpy in that sense, right? More Conan than Tolkien, I guess, in that sense. But, I just enjoy doing it. I've been playing with a lot of different things over the years, and I'll go through cycles where I get bored of fantasy, right? Your typical standard fantasy, and you're like, well, I just want to do something else. What can I do that's different? So, you basically just destroyed the whole thing with zombies, and then figured, okay, let's scoop up some pieces and throw them together in a pile, see what ferments out of that. So it worked out. Originally, it was actually going to be my entry for the Dungeons and Dragons Third Edition World Hunt, right? But it landed Eberron, so it actually shares some elements with Eberron, just as far as that noirish feel to it and everything. And Keith Baker was the creator of Eberron. He'd actually been a friend of mine. In fact, Atlas Games about 9 months, a year before we had won that, said, "Hey, we got this new freelancer. Can you kind of show him the ropes, break him in, show him how to do all this stuff?" And it was Keith. And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll teach him all this stuff." And then a year later, he's got a check for $120,000. I'm like, "You're doing well, kid. You're okay."
Yeah. And he told me that was like Eberron was like the 8th thing he submitted to that contest.
Yeah, exactly. You could submit anything you wanted to, and he was hungry and lean and wanted to get that stuff done, and he threw a lot of things at the walls to see what would stick, and that did. And to his credit, it's a wonderful setting. And I ended up writing the first set of Eberron novels alongside him. Right, we had he wrote a trilogy and I wrote a trilogy, and we kind of traded off month after month. So it was kind of fun to be able to work in that setting. Of course, back then all they had was like, here's 12 pages. Try to stay away from the center of it, work on the edges, and go.
Right. Yeah. They did the old TSR thing. Geographically stay out of each other's way.
Yeah, exactly.
And then books department doesn't have to worry about anything for a couple of years.
And then until somebody comes up with wikis and they're like, how does this work together? You're like,
yeah.
I was making shit up,
It's really interesting. I just filmed a thing with Keith, and I was telling him, in the late lamented Bombay Bicycle Club, the little bar that opened off the elevator bank at the old Mark Plaza, which became the Milwaukee Hilton, which they tore down to put the parking garage on it so we could finally park our cars after all these years, because cars were newfangled. I had a night of drinking with Peter Archer, in which this is before the contest, but the contest had been announced, but it wasn't running yet. And he said, "I want to do Professor Challenger. I want to do a jungle world, and I want steam locomotives that run on lightning or something." And of course, along comes everyone. You go, and you picked the entry that had all the things in it you wanted. Cool.
Hard to believe, right?
Yeah, but I mean, great.
Oh yeah.
By sheer coincidence, they got exactly what they wanted from the Keith submission. It was marvelous.
Keith's a great professional too. I mean, he breathed a lot of life into that world. So yeah, I saw you're up in Canada working with Keith and Elisa, I believe, right? Working on well, you're in Canada anyway, but you were doing something with Tommy, I believe, right?
Yeah, and I'll be zipping off to Tommy this weekend to do more. In fact, he keeps messaging me, making sure that I can come and stuff like that. Your car does work, doesn't it? That sort of stuff. all the stuff Canadians ask each other this time of year. You still have a car that's roadworthy? Let me check.
See if the rust is taking care of it or not.
Yeah.
Well, how much snow do you have right now, Ed?
Oh, not it. Everything's melting as we speak, and what that means in Canada is your sump pump packs it in, and then you race to buy new stuff before your basement floods, which is what I'm doing now. I should be downstairs fixing the sump pump, and I said, nah, forget it. I've played with that long enough. Let's go talk. And if the basement floods, well, I'll just contact the insurance people.
There you go.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Best to avoid if you can manage it, but yes.
Yeah. Because you'll lose about 1,000 books if you get 3 inches of water down there. I mean,
Yes. I have already moved the books off all the bottom shelves, and I am an old fart, so I laid down on the floor to do it. Because it's actually cheaper to buy a mechanic's creeper, lie on it, and scoot around the floor. And I recommend this to everybody listening to this podcast. If you are old, get yourself a mechanic's creeper. They have 101 uses, including putting heavy groceries in from the car.
Nice.
I've discovered the lovely world of repurposing things to do things that the manufacturers never dreamed and the insurance company would never approve of, but it may keep you alive in some moment when you desperately need it, because after all, the insurance guy isn't helping you in a blizzard at midnight. He's in bed asleep. You're struggling on your own, so you might as well do something that the thing wasn't designed to do and not kill yourself.
Is it right up there with the golf cart, Ed?
Yes.
For somebody over a certain age.
Okay. Now, here's the thing about golf carts. If you turn the governor up, you fry the engine, but you can get it up over 50 miles an hour. Don't ask me how I know that.
I think behind the golf cart you could drag one of those things that you lie on your back on, right?
Yes, and no, that's called a neighbor. If you're dragging,
or Jeremy Rennie.
Yes, well.
Oh, bum.
Hey, I can see I'm going to be that guy who keeps coming back to the topic we're here to discuss.
Sure.
Go ahead. I'm still working on this here.
So,
don't give us form and function.
I'm
So
sending the
probably
podcast over to Grant. So
Every
Grant,
2 minutes, I'm going to
right
go
ahead.
shotguns and sorcery. What's next?
Oh,
Shotguns and sorcery. What's next?
Well,
So,
you see,
hey,
this is how you get stuff done, Grant.
I
know
know.
what makes
I
you
work
a
on
captain
this,
of industry. That's what keeps us in gaming.
Yeah, tell it. Is that the Marvel?
This is the playtest rulebook that came out last April, but we have the core rulebook, a 320-page hardcover coming out on August 2nd, which is Gen Con Wednesday. So
Marvel multiverse role-playing game.
Yeah, so it's good.
That's
fun.
funny, Steven. Didn't you work on a Marvel game way back?
Yeah.
Back, yeah. I have the dubious honor of having written the final product for the Marvel role-playing game, the first and second edition, the one Jeff and Steve Winter put together.
Right.
So that went from 86 to 92, I think it was.
Yeah, and I still have a question for you.
What's that?
If my strength is unearthly, what the hell strength do I have?
Unearthly.
You have a number ranking of 100. That's what you have.
Thank you.
He knows.
So talk to us about the updates with the new Marvel multiverse role playing game.
So we
just
did
tell us about it.
We did 3 updates for it that we released publicly and then tested out with people, and then we were like, okay, I think we got a game here, and we put it all together. It's we've been playtesting privately and everything else, and with groups of people, and that's actually be coming out, like I said, in August. A little bit later than we were hoping, and man, we're right now in the last throes of just before we go to press, because all the stuff gets printed. It takes forever to ship, all that kind of stuff. So,
will it be unveiled at Gen Con then? Is that
it will be unveiled at Gen Con? Yes, actually, we'll probably have a few copies we can show at Comic Con, which is 2 weeks before that.
There's the trick: you airmail a box,
exactly.
So you have them, and then you deck ship the main shipment, and it might get there by Gen Con.
If we're lucky.
I now understand how all this stuff works.
Marvel
the big
does
unveiling.
They do all their distribution through Penguin Random House too. So like a lot of times they don't even see the comics or the books or whatever until they go get shipped through them. So it's quite a long logistical channel they have to actually funnel everything through. And I'm not privy to all the different steps. All I know is that they're like, no, it has to be now. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna break things until it happens. So
Were you given a set of Marvel superheroes you could work with, or
oh, you can work with anybody you want to, obviously. But,
anybody? Yeah.
The trick, of course, so we get to put in some favorites that maybe some people don't care about as much as others, and we get to there's like 100 some characters in the main book, right? And over 300 different powers and all sorts of, so it was a lot of work putting this together. I'm very tired right now. I'm just
you're still gonna work on it tonight,
I think on
right?
Monday, and I'm like just going, oh please, let's just get it. You want it to be done with, but you want to make sure you do the best possible job at the same time. So
because afterwards nobody cares how tired you were. They just care that there's something in the book they don't like.
It'll just haunt me for goddamn years.
Yeah.
So better to be haunted now and fix it now if I can.
Of the 100 characters in the book, what's your favorite character?
Spider-Man's always my favorite character, so that's
all right. And then
whether it's Peter Parker, Miles Morales, or whatever, but yeah.
Spider-Man.
He's so cool.
Although I did write a book on Captain America for DK Publishing, and suddenly he's my number 2 guy. So that was
I'm a fan of Captain America as well.
Is
Stephen, what's your favorite? From when you worked on the game, it must be
30
years ago.
Oh,
35 years ago.
Something just changed.
Yeah, right there. I was going to show everybody his. If you want to find out more about Matt, all you got to do is go and look at his never-ending book list.
Yeah.
Hey, I recognize some things there.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. That's only like the last 10 years, though. I never went back and started filling stuff in. I was always going to do that.
Hell, I forgot you wrote a leverage novel. If you bring a copy, I will buy it off of you for for Gary Con. And
then this just came out.
Yes.
Last week, I can't remember now.
Legends, yeah.
On my brain show.
Cool.
Yeah, it was last week. Okay.
It was yesterday at 5:00.
Exactly. Minecraft Legends. So there's a new Minecraft video game coming out called Minecraft Legends, and they hired me to write a novel for it. So I had good fun. It was, these are shorter books and they're not as involved. There's not, Minecraft's kind of interesting because there's not the kind of lore you have from like Forgotten Realms or Eberron or whatever else. It's just like you played Minecraft, that's all you get to know. Go. So I had written one for them earlier for Minecraft Dungeons, which actually does have lore to it, right? And then there's actually a story involved and everything else. But for just about everything else, it's just like, it doesn't count. It's whatever you do in your world, that's what counts. Don't worry about us. So, and like people are going, is this canon? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And then my editor's like, no, shut the hell up. No, it's like, it's so basically this is set in regular Minecraft. But it's like they have the legends in the background. They kind of influence things in our world. So it's good fun. I had fun with it. And, doing like 6 other things at the same time. Marty's helped me out with a bunch of stuff, most of which hasn't been announced yet. So we can't talk about it too much. But it's been kind of neat. So somebody comes and says, Matt, do you have time for this? I'm like, no, I do not have time for this. But
it's working now.
I have a kid.
It's working now. Look at this.
Good stuff.
There's no feedback, but low volume, they said, but at least there's no feedback.
There we go. Cool. I have, so, usually I'll just say, I don't have time for this, but maybe my son can help me with this, right? So,
That is so cool. You got your son doing it. My older son has never rolled a dice in his life. My youngest one runs like 4 games, 2 paid
professionally.
Games a week. Yeah, professionally. He's getting paid to DM.
Nice.
And he just started. Maybe he's 24 now. He started when he was about 20, and but he is just going. He's already created his own world. He is working on his own setting and player's handbook and everything, and he just can't wait.
You can stop him, Jeff. You can rescue his life
before it's too late.
When you said he started his own world, you can do an intervention right now.
Yeah, Ed could have used one a long time ago.
Yeah, just saying.
Been there.
Yeah. Haven't we all said, "Oh, I only need to build a village for this adventure"?
Yes.
That's where I'll stop. Yeah.
Right.
But that road leads somewhere. I've got to keep going. And we won't talk about Grant and his need to complete a map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a OCD on the.
No,
the
I
test
found
play.
out. I found out how to do the maps. You go to Ed's house. You steal one of his maps he
That's
drew when he
right,
was
yeah.
10 years old. You put it in your computer, and then you flush it out. And now now it's mine.
Or you
So-
could use the Thetford approach. You could do all that and then just leave it in Canada, like we did.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So shotguns and sorcery.
Yeah, actually,
I'm not used. Yeah.
I had a quick question
Grant,
for
I
Matt.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Matt, do you have a running list how many IPs you've worked on?
No, I gave up counting a long time ago.
We're past 40, or
I actually stopped counting the number of novels I was writing when I had about 35 or so.
There's so
I
many
probably should
books.
sit down and count it out at some point, but the trick is it would only be for my own head, and then the number changes and I would never update it, which is usually what happens. Like I've tried to figure out how many different game books I've been involved in and other stuff. I'm like, man, it just doesn't.
Well,
Yeah.
if you go in here, you have I'm looking at here anthologies, comics, novels, short stories, tabletop gaming, reference, video game, the original stuff, tie-ins, contemporary fantasy, horror, science fiction, super villains, thriller, urban fantasy, Blood Bowl, what's BNW.
Oh yeah.
BNW is Brave New World, which was
Brave New World.
dystopian superhero game I wrote.
Endless Quest, which we all know about, Exalted, Halo, Marvel, Minecraft, Monster Academy, Shotguns and Sorcery, and Star Wars.
It's a loaded question. What's your
It's
favorite
It's
world?
a nerd's paradise, is what it is.
It is.
Mine.
You just look at this. Yeah, yours is the most favorite. The Shotguns and Sorcery, right?
It's got to be somebody's
It's-
favorite. It's got to be mine. So I can't let that little poor orphan sit out there all by itself. It's mine.
So how many things are you
Oh.
working on simultaneously?
Well, today just the Marvel stuff, right? Especially if Marvel is listening to me.
I kind of meant like over a month, not just today. I'm working on one thing.
I'm working on this. Marty was writing a book for a large video game that we just wrapped up on. I was helping him out with that. I've got an interactive story I'm writing for another property. I got some game books I'm talking about doing with another property. I've got a video game that I'm working on with the guys I did Biomutant with. Biomutant came out a couple years ago, and they're part of THQ Nordic, I believe.
Yeah.
Up in Sweden, and they actually flew my wife and I out there back in September to do preliminary
Nice.
talks about it and all that. So, but it's one of those things where they're like, "We need you to start now," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready when you are. I'm going to keep working on everything else until you tell me." And then we're ready to start in 2 weeks. Sure, you are. I'll keep working on everything else.
Yeah,
3 months back,
yeah,
"We're ready."
Yeah.
So familiar.
The answer is, I'm ready when you're ready, guys. Just let me
It
know. Tap
sounds-
me on my shoulder. I will be in a dull goddamn panic, I'm sure, for the first couple of weeks.
It
So with
sounds-
all the stuff you have going on all the time, how's the meth addiction going?
Oh, really well. I mean, as long as I keep the supply going, it's really no problem. It's
Or the
crazy.
Adderall, I should say. How much Adderall do you take a day?
Jeez. I got well, yeah, actually Nick's going back to college. I'm gonna have 4 kids in college here shortly. So there's a lot of work to be done. So,
You better write some more books.
yeah, exactly.
Do you and Ed live in that?
Marty graduated, got married, all that stuff last summer, and
Oh,
but the quads are all 3 of them in college right now. Nick going back in the summer. So yeah.
A quick question: do you and Ed both live in that NDA world?
Yes.
Can't
Oh,
talk about
yes.
this. I can't talk about this. I can't
Yeah.
talk about this.
See why I'm sitting here so quiet?
Yeah. It's like, well, I could tell you something, but
But
not
I
on this
can't.
show.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to.
Now, sometimes you have the NDA. I mean, I've signed more NDAs than I can count.
Yeah.
And then you look back, you're like, I was actually going through my files the other day. I'm like, what the hell is this? Oh, I signed the NDA and nothing happened. That happens more often than you want to talk about.
Yep.
But you're like, oh, I signed an NDA once that had a €500,000 penalty if I broke it. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
that's really
Wow.
interesting, guys, because I don't have anywhere near that kind of money. You're
Wow.
not paying me that well either. So it's, if I break it right now, it's not going to make any difference. But I always take them seriously. Sometimes you have what's called the friend DA, which is you sit down with your buddies in a bar and you can talk as long as you're all under the code of silence.
Friend DA. I've never heard that before. That's good.
Yeah.
But it's all good fun. The funny thing is, this is how it's becomes this old boys network in a way where, I don't have to look for work anymore because people say, do you know somebody who can do this? And because I've got a track record, people just call me up out of the blue. And so I haven't had to knocking a door for something like a decade or more. For people asking to do stuff, which is nice, On the other hand, you're like, I should be doing my own stuff. I should have bigger dreams. I'm like, if I had time, maybe I would, but I got to do this right now. I have a novel I'm supposed to write for Tor that I sold them 10 years ago on a pitch. And then my editor got fired for sexual harassment. And I got shuffled to another editor, and she said, take all the time you need, which is the worst thing in the world to say to me. And cut to like 8 years later, and then another editor picked it up. He's like, yes, let's do it. And then he got let go just recently. He said, I'm on my 4th editor, and I'm trying to get it done this year, hopefully even next month. So as soon as I'm done with the Marvel stuff, I'm going to take a little break, right, go back to the other stuff I got to do, the Marvel stuff, whatever else. So.
At least your editors have been let go. My editors die. I kill off editor. Brian Thompson, David Hartwell,
Wow.
And then at one point, Tom and I were having lunch at a Gen Con because he would come to each Gen Con because Tom Jr., his grandson lived locally. So he would go to Gen Con and talk to all of his authors, visit his grandson and write it off as a business trip. Oh, did I say that out loud? But I mean, at one point he said, okay, Ed, if things get going, I'm going to have to take over your editing your book. And I said, no, because I didn't want to be responsible for killing Tom Doherty.
Exactly. You got to fence that off nice and tight there.
But
yeah, those editors, 2 left involuntarily. So, one actually got to retire though, which was nice. We try not to kill them off if we have a choice. Good editors are hard to find.
Yeah, they're tough to kill usually.
That's right. But you have a lot of experience apparently. So.
Ed does tend to kill them.
Neighborhood professional.
Yeah, well, he does have that big lot in the back. He has a lot of stuff buried back there, so I don't know.
There's a few empty buildings back there.
It's like the old Murder She Wrote thing where it's just the murders follow you everywhere to the point you're like, she must be doing it.
She must be. That's right. It's right. You can blame it on your borders.
All my professional secrets. You guys are blowing them all. Before we get to the end of this program, I won't be able to move.
You were to get a shovel and start digging, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's bring up Google Maps and put a pin on it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it looks like, Ed, I'm going to put Curry on the spot. We're going to be doing it the last week of May.
Okay.
Coming to you. So.
Okay, this is good. Yeah, it'll be great. I currently have a house.
He's not ready for you guys.
No, because I have borders.
Not at all.
I have borders, and they moved in the middle of a blizzard. And what that meant is the movers threw everything inside the front door and left. The blue room is stacked to the ceiling. Literally, we edge past it to get in and out. So at the moment, you know that lovely table we sat at?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, daughter and granddaughter permanently borrowed that little bookshelf unit I was using.
No.
Okay.
And then everything else is literally floor to ceiling mattresses and stuff. So the moment the weather gets good, I will begin shifting stuff out to the trailers in a desperate attempt to have a house that people can like breathe in when they come in the door.
Well,
and
we'll get
going.
Well, we're gonna rent that place that we found at B&B around the corner. There's one on the street behind your land.
Yep.
Curry found one. Apparently, nobody wants to go to Coburn because it's only like $117 a day for the entire house. So.
And there's only one restaurant about 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, but this way we don't have to. This way we can stay there and not crowd you.
Okay. Well, you can walk down through the woods and we'll find your bodies in the spring.
Right. We'll go through and mark all
that's actually a threat. I'm not sure that's
We'll just mark all the mounds in the back going, oh, this mound wasn't here before.
All right. So let me turn this into a question. Do authors like Matt and Ed and Steven normally live in chaos?
Yes. I remember Kit Ward would always talk about walking around TSR, and he'd say you could tell the editors from the writers because the writers' cubicles are just overflowing with shit. There's that stuff everywhere. You go over to the editors; it's all very straight, tight, and narrow, whatever.
Yep. Well,
I go through stages though. I'll be crazy, and then I'll, like this is actually pretty nice right now. I'll be crazy, and then in between projects, I gotta do this
Yeah.
nesting thing where I start cleaning everything off because I know I won't have another chance until I get done with the project.
Is this where you tell them the John Pickens story?
I think you should tell them that one.
Wait, which one?
The one where he's
the
only
imploding
still
cube?
alive today because he slept under his desk. So when the entire cubicle collapsed, he was not crushed. He survived.
Oh, wow.
The Johnny pole that carried, because it was a Q-tip factory and it predated computers. So there were Johnny poles going down to every cubicle bringing electricity so you could have computers. And John Pickens would work all hours and then just fall asleep in his cubicle. So he got in the habit, so he wouldn't be woken up by the cleaners and so on, of rolling in under the table. So he was under his keyboard and sleeping in there. And so the Johnny pole was digging its way through the acoustic tile with this long groove because the weight of 2 copies of everything that TSR produced, the weight of all that was just dragging it down.
Yeah, because he had everything on the top edge of his cube wall, and that one cube wall was only supported by the pole going up through the acoustic tile, and he's not paying attention to how much it's dragging through there.
Until one fateful morning when there was this huge crash, and then people went to see if his body was under there. It was. He was still asleep, peacefully asleep.
It didn't wake
wreckage
him up?
of his. No. Well, their yells woke him up. Are you in there, John? Stuff like that. But no, he was happily asleep because he was reaching up in his usual way up from the underneath to the countertop looking for his glasses to put them on, pull them on, and answer all these people. And he kept putting his hand up, and there was no counter there anymore because it had collapsed on an angle.
I think that happened probably within the first year I was at TSR, and about a year or so after that, he moved up to the cube adjacent to mine, and I got in the habit of, when I came in, I was usually one of the first ones there, and I got in the habit of being very loud as I came in, stomping my feet, dropping things, because I knew John had fallen asleep in his cube the night before, and it left him his dignity of just being able to, go home and sleep for a few hours and then come back.
All right, so shotguns and sorcery.
There we go. Let's bring it back. So wait, I have a thing. Here. So,
Grant, this is great.
So, Matt, how can I purchase another one of these? Because I want to do a giveaway.
They're still available if you go to shotgunsandsorcery.com. They'll take you to the pre-order page through BackerKit. So if you want to pre-order through that, I haven't released them to the public yet. That's the secret backdoor way for people to do that kind of stuff.
Shotgunsandsorcery.com?
Yeah, shotguns and sorcery.
Is that something we shouldn't give out to everybody on Twitch?
No, I don't care. I'm easy.
Hey,
the backers all got everything they really needed, and they won't. The people who are that way won't get all the extra stuff that the backers did. So,
a question about shotguns and sorcery. How's it structured, and just a little bit about the structure and how it's played.
The game itself. Well, I mean,
Grant, you're such a nice guy.
We did we did a Cypher System edition that Rob Schwalb came in and wrote the rules for. And Rob's a pretty decent designer. He worked on 4th and 5th edition. He's a great guy. He does. He's got Weird Wizard coming up, but Shadow of the Demon Lord is his big game that he's been doing for a few years right now. Amazing stuff.
Okay.
And then we did a 5th edition version that I actually hired Marty to do the 5th edition stuff, and then we hired Rob to come in and be the developer for it. So came in, it's like, I already know D&D, I know 5th edition or whatever, I can do this kind of stuff. I knew shotguns and sorcery. So it came out pretty well. And we had like Owen Stevens came in and did the Pathfinder version that we did too. So we generally tended to hire out the rules stuff to people who were experts in whatever field that happened to be at the time. So the structure is pretty much like, here's the story, here's what's going on, here's your characters, here's your powers, here's your abilities, here's your classes, depending on whatever thing it is. Here's the amazing stuff. I can actually get a copy and show you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey.
One of these things. There we go.
And he comes back with a shotgun. No.
And he goes, Alakazam, bitches. There's your sorcery.
There we go. So that's
I love
Dragon
it
City
when
right there, right?
I
was
love it
great.
when the teacher brings visual aids.
There we
Right,
go.
that's right.
And the neat thing about this is I had to pay an extra for this anyway, but they said, you want to print anything on the end papers? Like, wow, I can print on the end papers. Cool. So I put the map there, and then I have one for the Dungeon Master or the Game Master.
Nice.
It's got the labels on this side of the map, right? So the one
Very
side
nice.
is just blank, so you can say, okay, this is the mysterious area. Now you
Yeah.
can know. But the interesting
Much better
thing
choice.
about Dragon City is you get the dragon up top, and then it's stratified basically by longevity and power, right? So dragon lives up here, the elves are here, the dwarves are here, the gnomes, the halflings, the humans. And then down here in the shadow of the Great Wall, which is the only thing keeping the zombies from eating everybody, you get the orcs and the goblins and etc. Right, the green people, so to speak. So you get that. Again, that's part of the whole noir thing. Is you have people who are on top and people who are down low and being oppressed, right? And you get to wander amongst all of them because you're one of the investigators, or these adventurers. Essentially, you get to wander from one area to the next. You're kind of like an artist who can walk into a fancy restaurant and also into a slum, right? It's really, I've had a lot of fun with it over the years. I wrote 3 novels and 3 short stories. I'd actually shelved it at one point. I actually sold this as a setting to Mongoose Publishing for 3rd edition. And then my wife got pregnant with quadruplets. And I'm like, guys, I don't think I got time to do this anymore. So, they said, okay, you can take your time. And then Robin Laws asked me for a short story for an anthology he was doing. And I wrote up a short story using the setting. I'm like, I really like that. I should do more of that. So I kept doing it. This company, Outland Entertainment, licensed it for a Cypher System game. And then the guy who was running that ended up going through divorce and had a lot of troubles. And they ended up coming out with the game, but it was like 5 years later. And the license was actually expiring as he was shipping it. He goes, should we? He goes, I'd like to renew it and finish this off. I'm like, do you really want to do that? Are you sure? I mean, because if this is just a millstone around your neck, I'd be happy to take that from you. Call it quits. You'll do the artwork. I'll do the writing. We'll get it out the door, and then we'll just have it out. The problem with doing the self-publishing stuff is I'm lazy, right? I would much rather send it to a publisher and have them do all the work because I'm too busy doing the work. I actually enjoy doing the writing more than I enjoy doing the marketing and everything else.
Layout
So
everything.
So stuff like this, when I come on here, it's fun to talk about stuff I'm doing.
Okay.
Literally, unless I have that kind of excuse, I don't think to do it. Right?
How did you find the Kickstarter?
How did I what?
How did you find the Kickstarter?
How did I
for it?
find the Kickstarter?
Yeah,
Well,
how
I
did
made
you, how
it, so I
was
just
was
looked
the
it up.
experience of it?
You pull back the covers and there it is.
I've run a bunch of Kickstarters.
AICK.
Back in 2012, I had this crazy idea, which actually led into Shotguns and Sorcery too. But I tried to do write a dozen novels in 1 year, right? And they were 50,000 word novels, so they're short ones. 40,000 is usually the cutoff. And nowadays, most novels, especially 80 to 100. If you're writing a fantasy doorstop, it can be 250 or whatever. But I'm like, I want to write a dozen novels in a year, but I know no publisher is going to swallow a dozen novels from me. So I'm going to break them up into 4 trilogies. I'm going to run a Kickstarter for each one, and then write them. And I managed to do all the Kickstarters funded. We ended up bringing in about 60 grand or so like that, just to get everything going. And then I didn't quite write a dozen novels a year. I wrote 10 novels for that series, and I wrote 10 novels for that series, a leverage TV novel, and 9 issues of the Magic the Gathering comic book, and a novella for StarCraft 2. So I failed, but I failed well, as I like to say. Set yourself some high goals, and if you come in a little short, it's okay, right? And I managed to finish all the books off. One of the trilogies was Shotguns and Sorcery, actually. So when after that, the funny part was then I said, I got this great idea for another series I'm going to do. It's called Loot Drop. I'm going to write this whole trilogy of books about it. And I realized, I pitched that to an editor. I should check with him to see if he wanted it or not first. And I wrote him and said, well, actually, I do want it. That's the one that I have to write now, 10 years later. So it's
That's
Tor.
awesome.
it's all interconnected. So
It's all one world.
exactly. I just love doing this stuff, right? I mean, the 4th trilogy of that was Monster Academy, and then that's going to end up being a game from Calliope Games that we're doing with them. Mike Selinker and his crew over at Lone Shark are helping us out with the mechanics on that.
Right.
So it's, you do a lot of these fun things, and then you get to work, it's your own properties. And if something takes off, then, fantastic, right? And if it doesn't, I still get to work on, all the other wonderfully wild and crazy stuff I do. But, video games pay pretty well too. So I like to work on video games. I had 2 of them come out last year that I had done some writing for. It was Hard West 2 and Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus, which was a mobile game.
You talk about novels or game books?
Those are actually games. I wrote for the games.
Oh, did you? Because I know you did the Minecraft.
Yep.
Those,
No,
how,
like
how,
I write
how did
novels.
those do? How did the novels do for Minecraft?
They do pretty well. I mean, I don't get a royalty on those, so they don't send me numbers, but they do fairly well, from what I understand, right?
Oh,
The
so
Halo
they
novels
just
do
paid
pretty
you
well.
for it? They just paid you a
They're
flat
like,
fee?
here's your money. I'm like, I'd like a royalty. They're like, no.
No.
Okay.
That's unusual.
That is
Usually at that point, I'm
No.
like, well, if I'm not getting a royalty, then I need something. And they're like, okay, here's more money. I'm like,
okay.
it takes away the pain of not royalties. Okay. So a lot of times
There are
mostly
worse
because-
problems.
Yeah,
That's true.
a lot of times it's because they're paying a royalty to whoever is, the publisher is paying a royalty to the original creators of the company that owns the IP, and they don't want to double it up, right? They're like, oh, we're already paying this much money to Microsoft or whatever, so they're getting the royalty, you get the flat fee. I'm like,
Yeah.
So that's I think for the Halo ones, we negotiate a very tiny royalty, which is probably never going to pay out. My grandchildren might get a piece of it. I don't know. But the neat thing is that I get statements every quarter, right? So I know how well they're selling, which is kind of nice.
Right.
Just from that point of view, it's good to have some information. And those do pretty well too. I mean, I wrote a Guild Wars 2 novel. I get statements on that.
Well, that's nice.
But then, then I write for video games too. And writing for video games as opposed to writing books about video games generally pays even better than writing books about video games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Matt, you
It's
had
a much bigger audience, right? So
Matt, you had mentioned a novella for StarCraft 2. I was scrolling through the list and I didn't see it. And I'm a huge fan of a lot of Blizzard's games. Can you give me a synopsis of that? Because I'd probably like to pick that up.
It didn't have a cover, I don't think. I don't think it ever actually released as a book. It came out for free online.
Okay.
Around the time, I think they were still developing StarCraft 2 at the time, so it's been a while.
Oh, wow. It's been a while.
But there's things I didn't put up there. Like I did an interactive audio adventure for the Milwaukee Public Museum where you had this little app on your phone, and you would it actually figured out which way you would, like, if you want to find Houdini's check, you could go over and check in the candy store, or you can go over to the record department, right? And it would tell which way you went by having a Bluetooth beacon that the phone would actually identify and say, you've made it over here. Now this is what's going on in this part of the story. And then give you another choice, right? And that was fun. I worked on that for a year with Milwaukee Public Museum on and off, and we got to record it. The guy who was our recording engineer was the guy who was the producer for the first 2 Violent Femmes albums, and he had the gold records hanging on the wall.
Oh, those albums.
This is great. So,
yeah.
But stuff like that, I just generally don't. I haven't had a chance to put up there. I used to do a lot of work in toy design too, right? I did stuff for Playmates toys and Mattel and or whatever. And that paid pretty well up until in 2008. The whole market dropped out of that, along with a lot of other stuff, and it's probably recovered by now. But I haven't gone back to it because I've been too busy with other things. Yeah. It's all good fun. But I get, like, for instance, I did a Star Trek utility role play kit for the 2009 movie, and I got to go sit in J.J. Abrams' office and read the book or read the script for the film before it was actually done filming. So I could write the dialogue for this thing. And it was basically a phaser and a communicator, and you would wave it over the speaker, and there was a 3-way switch in it. You wave it this way, the magnet would go in. If you put the communicator over, the magnet would go out, and it would detect that. And we had 90 seconds of sound, and we're supposed to tell the kids to go off and do different adventures. And I'm like, well, I'm a game designer. Can I program a random adventure generator into that? They're like, sure, go ahead. Basically just came up with a big flowchart that did all that. And they had some people in China write the assembly code directly to the chip that would make it all happen. And we managed to fit something like 2,000 different combinations within 90 seconds, which was
wow.
Oh, wow.
Right. Wow. Wow.
You mind if we go into some complete conjecture?
Sure.
Got a question in the Twitch stream that could spin off of this pretty well. Lucas JP says this is something he's bringing back to your attention from 2011. He says, I really want to hear if Matt has changed his mind on the conclusion he drew in the Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Nope.
Could the Empire kick the Federation's ass? And other galaxy-shaking enigmas. So it still holds firm. Your opinion is still the same?
My opinion is they're both really good properties, and I love both, right?
Yeah.
But Star Wars for me edged it out. And it's one of those things where, like, we're gonna put Han Solo against Captain Kirk, and I wrote a whole book with all these different who would win. I think it was Peter Archer who wrote that for back.
Oh, really?
Come on,
He
everybody
was over
knows
at
that
Adams
Kirk.
Media at the time. So.
And come on, Kirk's Enterprise just blows right past ships like the Falcon and ignores them.
The funny thing is that in Star Trek you can hit warp 10 or whatever, but in Star Wars you move at the speed of plot, right? It's just like, how long does it take? It takes as long as it needs to.
That's good.
That's really hard.
So
to
he
beat.
could have made the
speed of
Kessel run
plot.
quicker if the plot needed it.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
This is how it works. So but yeah, that was a book that was pulling teeth to write that book. I'm like, I have a deadline I have to sit. I actually was like, I'm just going to sit and write one of these every hour until it was finally done. And it's one of those, like, it sounds like a great idea. Now I actually have to write the goddamn thing.
Yeah, it's funny that I once spent an evening working with a cameraman who'd done both of those properties. And he said the answer to that is how old you are. Because if you're old enough, there was only Trek.
Right.
Yep.
The other didn't exist. And you were firmly, having done all that, for good or for evil, whether you liked it or not, it was, quote, real and established for a decade. And then along came this airy-fairy thing, and where they thought parsecs was, that sort of stuff. And you just sort of say, this is fun, this is cool, this is where we just wing it and don't care what happens because there's no consistency at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think everybody here pretty much is old enough to have been Trek only at one point. So
yeah.
No. Star Wars was my first love.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I saw it in the theater 7 times.
I'm gonna mute.
And I was like 7 or 8 years old.
I'm gonna mute you right now.
No, Matt and I are the same age.
No, I agree. Right? Like Star Trek, I was alive with we were both alive before Star Wars came out, right? But
yeah, Star Trek was actually kind of scary.
Yeah, we were young.
It was on TV
at that time, right? Yeah. So,
you know what's really scary? I remember William Shatner on stage doing Shakespeare at Stratford Festival in Ontario as a spear carrier.
Nice.
He wasn't even a major guy. He was starting to play those supporting roles as a little, when I was a little kid, and he was doing all this, and he wasn't yet, because the Captain Kirk thing, he was acting, so he didn't normally talk like each word was its own sentence. He didn't do that on stage.
Come to me now.
But yeah, I remember all that, and then I remember it starting, and I remember my father saying, "Good God, is this bad?" And of course, what my dad meant was the production values, and you could see the wires and all that stuff, and the first time my father saw somebody go through one of those doors, those Irish doors, he said, people the other side you can't see are pulling them on handles because they're not pulling them at the same speed. The left-hand one, it started before the right-hand one, and the right-hand one stuck. He says, they're just doing it by hand. Son, you could do this. This is like one of your high school productions. And I said, Dad, it is one of my high school
Fair enough.
I have to confess that I'm torn on these choices because my initial sci-fi media exposure was the $6 Million Man.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
God, you're young. There you go.
Oh my God. Oh,
there's
I
your
remember
feel-good
watching
moment.
that. There you go. Make you feel better, Stephen.
That leads to a great question. What was everyone's very first memory of sci-fi? I know what mine is.
Well, it depends on for mine. I'll go first because mine was yeah, it's a tough one. It was a night gallery. To me, that was science fiction.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, remember Night Gallery? I don't know if
Not,
anybody
not,
remembers
not
that.
that creepy little voodoo doll thing, was it? Or-
No, I did see that one though, but I'm talking about Night Gallery where they would do the pictures and the whole thing was surrealistic and stuff. So that and Outer Limits, you know, watching these on late night TV on Friday nights. Outer Limits and Night Gallery were two I think two scariest ones for me growing up. And then it was Star Trek because it was every day after school. We'd watch Happy Days. We'd watch I'm dating myself. We'd watch
God,
Happy
you guys
Days.
are young.
We'd watch. Well, I wasn't watching Howdy Doody yet. Happy Days. We would watch.
It's howdy doody time.
Gomer Pyle. And then it was Star Trek, and then we'd have dinner. That was every night. I was
Wow.
Maybe the Jetsons or
Ooh.
the
Jetsons. Wow.
or Captain
wow.
Kangaroo. Even Captain Kangaroo.
Captain Kangaroo. Okay.
Had a little sci-fi elements to it.
Yeah.
No, he was just high. He was just high.
Okay.
It wasn't sci-fi.
My
Oh,
first
man.
one predates TV, of course.
Okay.
Tom
There
Corbett?
was no TV. Because my father was working on the what would become the semiconductors. But what I remember was my father had all the wartime paperbacks, give one to a friend in uniform, and they were all falling apart because the glue was going, because it was really cheap glue because of wartime. So they were all splitting as you read them. Like you had to hold them in place and keep the pages. Anyway, but he had copies of the Lensman books by E. Doc Smith that had been published during the Great Depression. And E. Doc Smith was the only books that were published in hardcover during the Great Depression with gilded edges and gilded titles, and it was called The History of Civilization. That's how well they thought of those books in the Great Depression. It was like, and I said to my dad, "Where did you get these?" And he says, "I bought them at the Five and Dime, son." And I said, "But they've got like gilding." He says, "Books were books back then."
That's right. That's right.
They were heirlooms.
But you know, my father had, you know, he considered that dirty books were Peyton Place and Forever Amber. Although I did find some interesting ones. And I remember pounding up the stairs from the den with Owl Hoot Trail. She was staked out nude in the sun to die. And of course, this was a pulp wartime thing. And I showed it to my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, this was great. Where's the next one?" And of course, he had a room full of 5-star generals and stuff. And he's going, "Son, let's, why don't we talk about this later?"
So this is a good time to say shotguns and sorcery.
No, let's back up.
All right.
Everybody has to tell us their favorite. Did everybody?
Oh yeah, we got.
I mean, did Matt tell us his favorite?
I don't
think so.
even know what my favorite was. Star Wars, but I mean, my rule of thumb in the 70s and 80s was if Harrison Ford was in it, it was fucking amazing, right? So,
yeah.
You had Star Wars, you had Indiana Jones, you had Blade Runner, you had all the great ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think my first science fiction stuff, I don't really remember, but I was watching Creature Feature on Channel 18 out of Milwaukee.
Yeah, Creature Feature,
and,
yeah.
It was Friday nights at like 8:00, and you would see the tarantula creeping across the book slowly. Come back now, Creature Feature.
That's right.
I watched everything I could see on that thing, right? It was horror and fantasy and science fiction.
If you really want to say science fiction that was considered science fiction was a soap opera, was Dark Shadows.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
I could still see my mom watching that in the 60s when I was living in California. You know,
and you know something? The thing that brought it home how old I was watching the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
When the guests are coming into the party, you know, when Alice Cooper's performing and he says, "Ugliest woman I've ever seen."
Yeah.
But the original Barnabas Collins was one of the guests.
Was he
coming to the door, and he was being helped in? He had a woman was holding either one of his arms, so he didn't fall over.
Wow.
He was that old, and Johnny Depp made sure he was in the movie.
Nice.
to
He
walk
had
on.
he has to be in his 90s now
Yeah.
at least. Oh my god.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
I
incredible.
don't think
Curry-
he's with it. Yeah.
Curry, what was your favorite? Your first
Well,
experience.
the questions changed. Favorites Star Wars. Jeff, you've been to my house. I've got more Star Wars crap.
Oh
than
yeah,
is
he's got Star
imaginable.
Wars condoms. Are you kidding? Come on.
I've got more.
Go where no
lightsabers.
man has gone
Come
before.
before.
I've
What's it
got
protect you from? That's
I've
the
got
question.
7 lightsabers within reach of me right now. As a matter of fact.
Yeah.
In case the aliens invade.
Right. I just finished building my first complete set Stormtrooper, so the answer to that is Star Wars. My first, I remember still my very first sci-fi TV show. And this was before I was born, but I happened to catch these, and I used to love watching them in the morning. Was called Ultraman, and there was only 30 some odd episodes of Ultraman, but that was my very first memory of a sci-fi television show. My very first memory of a sci-fi movie was, I believe it was Logan's Run.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Classic.
we're all like, yes, I remember that.
Polite applause for Jenny Agutter.
Okay.
Does anybody remember
wait.
G-Force?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
How about Blake
that?
7? How about Blake 7? If anybody,
Oh
you're
yeah,
old.
all the
Yeah.
British ones. Yeah.
Oh my god,
Prisoner.
yeah. Blake
Yeah.
7, they only made 7 of them. I think 7 or 8. But yeah, I used to love that show. But
And Shadow.
as we talk about shotguns and sorcery,
Yeah. Hey,
that's right. We're gonna
you
hold it
know,
right here.
I was going to segue back to that by mentioning Wild Wild West as another sort of pseudo sci-fi thing that fits in quite well with shotguns and sorcery. I would
It
think.
really does. So is that kind of like the feeling you get when you play this game is like Wild Wild West, or
No, I mean,
something?
I did Deadlands way back in the day, so I didn't want to
Mhm.
really tread over the same old ground. So I mean, it has less of a Western feel. It's less 1880s and more like 1910s feel, right?
Okay.
So,
Uh-huh.
like there's actually a bit in the books where this guy's riding this palanquin that's flying on a flying carpet that's got a machine gun mounted on the top of it. He's firing at the dragon, all
My
sorts of
God.
wacky shit like that. So,
Holy crap.
yeah, that's all good fun, right? So yeah, it's a little bit less that way, but that was actually, I got a gig working on Hard West 2, which was a video game I worked on last year, because the guy who was the lead writer in the game had grown up in his teenage years playing Deadlands. He's like, oh, I could get one of the writers from Deadlands. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so old. Holy shit.
Oh, I know that
Wow.
feeling.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
But when I started out doing this stuff. I go to conventions when I was like 13, 14 years old. So, and when I was a professional, I was like in college starting out, and worked for Gary Gygax at New Infinities when I was in college. And so, the idea now that I'm one of the old guard as opposed to this up and coming kid is always kind of strange to me. So
Right.
I'm used to having
right.
people who are like, 10 years older than me being the main designers. And
It's funny how you say that, because it's really true in every part of the life. My wife the other day was talking to her sister, and she goes, what happened to the old people, the people who take care of all this? And she's like, we are the old people.
exactly. I saw a joke about that. It's like, isn't it funny being the same age as old people?
I know.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. All you people
Beats the
listening,
alternative, right?
It's
So-
going to happen. It's going to happen one day. You're going to look back and go, what happened?
Now, the funny part is, though, when you look back, you're like, I will look back, hopefully, assuming I'm alive 20 years from now, and think I was so young and I just wasted that time then, right? It's thinking I was old. And I'll be,
Okay. No. How could you waste it?
in my
I don't
70s,
think so.
Come on.
written
Between
3,000
you and Ed,
books.
I agree with what you're about to say there, Jeff. I mean, you guys are just like on the paper, and
Oh my
lots of
God,
things come out.
3,000 books. I mean, come on. I mean,
You're writing for a living. That's what you do.
Yeah.
yeah.
You see, Jeff, we're addicted to eating.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I am too, but I went and got a job.
Like a smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
so you're not like
Okay.
Neil Gaiman or Guy Gabriel Kay sitting 3 years or 5 years in a cabin writing their singular book.
Wouldn't that be nice? Right.
Oh my God. And those are the ones you hate, is that so and so spent 5 years in their cabin writing the great American novel, and it sells 1 billion copies in the first month. And you're like, wait a second.
No, awesome. Good for them, right? I mean, that's the trick, though. It's not an economy based on fairness.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
That's
true.
true.
Yeah.
It's not
That's
about how
true.
much work you put into it, or even
Yeah.
even honestly how much talent. I mean, a lot of it's just what strikes at the right moment, and you
Yep.
have no control over this, right?
That's true. I mean, look at Harry Potter. I mean, the iron was hot.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I mean, well, and honestly, if
Magical
luck it,
academies before Harry Potter came along, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Joe Rowling shows up and it's like boom, and just to her credit, I mean, it's well written stuff. It's great, it has lots of hooks. People love it. But if it had come out 2 years later, it probably wouldn't have hit it. If it come out 2 years before that, it probably wouldn't have hit
Well, when
Yep.
they hit it right.
yeah.
Yeah, same thing with Twilight too.
Yeah, Diane
it.
Duane.
Young writers are like,
Yep.
I'm going to do that. I'm like, you know what?
Sure.
Hitting lottery is not a business plan, right? You just can't
Mhm.
base your future on the idea that you're going to be one of the 0.001% that manages to pull this off.
Sure you can. It's called the American Dream.
There you go.
You have a better chance of becoming published than doing
Oh,
the American
you have a better
Dream.
chance of winning the lottery, literally, than doing those kind of
That's
numbers
true.
off your first books, right?
That's
Yeah.
true. And what were you saying, Stephen?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just debating how many shirts I need to get and bring to Gary Con that says, "When is this old enough to know better going to kick in?"
Oh my God, that's great. Okay, I do have a question that's
Right
on
before
everybody's
convention
mind.
stops that, so.
That's on everybody's mind on the internet right now, especially for gamers, is what is your gut? What do you guys think of? I know nobody's really seen it. Only a few people have seen the movie. Is the Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out? What is your feeling on the movie itself? I mean, we all know the plot. We all seen the campy. I mean, personally, I love the jokes and stuff, especially the Talk with Dead joke. If you haven't seen it, where they're doing Speak with Dead. He goes, you can only ask him 5 questions, and he's like, "Can you hear me?" And the dead guy's like, "Yes." That's one. And he's, and the whole thing goes through where he hits his 5 questions in like 30 seconds, and he's like, "No, it's not what I was asking," and the guy falls over. But they have all kinds of stuff. They go against the standard of what a druid can do in things. But what do you think about the movie? How do you feel about it coming out the way it has, and what are your hopes that it's going to do?
I hope it sells millions. I hope they make lots and lots of money on it, and then people think, "Oh my God, we can actually do more of these things."
Yeah.
Right? I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Why would you want it to fail? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had D&D movies that didn't do well, and that didn't help anybody.
I want a movie where if a non-gamer who is a friend or a family member and has never played D&D goes to see the movie and says, "So that's D&D, huh?" The D&D player can say, "Yeah, that's D&D," and be proud of it, not cringe. "Yeah, that's D&D, but not really." So if whatever it has to do, be funny, be full of in-jokes, whatever it has to do to be a good movie at the box office that pleases lots of people, I'm wildly in favor of, because I want, like Matt said, I want them to make more, but I also want it to be something that doesn't sort of make everybody go, "Oh, that's D&D? Ugh."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
See, we're all old enough to remember that the John Milius Conan the Barbarian movie came out.
Yep.
And suddenly there were, and it was okay. It's not aged well, but it was okay and then 1,000 imitators came out in the 5 years after that, and most of them were garbage, but we enjoyed them anyway because what were we going to do? Stay home and watch Knight Rider?
You were starved
Hawk
for that
the
thing,
Slayer.
Quill, never forget Quill.
Beastmaster, Dragon
Beastmaster.
Slayer.
Oh my God, Beastmaster is awesome.
Too much baby oil in that movie.
I went to see all of them. It was great.
Oh yeah, you had to. You had to see all of them.
You had to see
Come on,
all of them.
Barbarian Brothers.
Rip Torn was a perfect
Beastmaster was a guest at Gen Con one year. The guy
Yes,
who played, right?
I remember that. Yeah.
Hey, I remember him coming over and saying, "I got this idea for a game." I'm like, "Well, this is probably as far as this is going to go, but go ahead."
well, the reason why I brought that up is because of the recent things that have happened with Wizards of the Coast with the OGL. and this is probably a touchy subject, but they a lot of the people are hoping it fails. And they think it's going to be a smack in the face to Wizards and Hasbro. And my comment has always been, dude, you're a D&D player. I've been playing since 1978. Why would I want this to fail?
Right.
You know, I want this to be the best D&D movie in the world. I've sat through 2 D&D movies that were not the best in the world, and by God, I want one that's going to fucking make millions of dollars. You know, why would you want it to fail? It's not Wizards not going to care. It's Hollywood. You're screwing if you don't go see it. You know?
Yeah, I don't see there's an upside to it failing for anybody, really. I mean,
No.
If you're vengeful and spiteful, I can see that you're like, well, you know, these are the same people saying, you know, people play D&D and there's plenty of other better stuff out there, and you know that's arguably true. But you know, it's okay for to have the market leader do well, right? I mean, if the market leader starts to tank, that's not going to help anybody, right? It's not like suddenly people are like then going to turn to every other game in the world and say, let's play this instead, right?
Right.
Yep.
And there is a world that I can be, I can have an opinion about the OGL, favorable or non, and still have hope for the movie and still want to enjoy it and have it be one of my favorites that, you know, that I'll see in a long time. A lot of people have their opinions about the OGL, and in our group, it's basically the same. But of course, I'm going to go see the movie. Of course, I'm going to go see the movie probably more than once.
Me too. Yeah.
I want nothing but this to be a great time.
Well, so far the reviews have been wonderful. I know there's going to be more, but right now it's like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I saw that. Yeah.
Well,
I feel you know, I feel about the movie a little bit that, you know, any movie you go see or any story you tell has to have a really great storyline, right? Ultimately, it's really about the content. You know, whatever you're going to go see, you hope that you're engaged with it, and ultimately the rule set, the spells, you want to recognize them for sure, but it shouldn't be about them. It's not like you're suddenly, you know, panning the camera to a magnifying glass on this and going, look, a D&D item, you know, or something like that. I feel like that's a real loss for people, right? And a waste of time. And that's exactly what would turn people off, right? So let's just have a good story. I hope it's fun.
Yeah. It looks like it's going to be fun.
I hope it tells a good story.
You know, the whole thing is I enjoyed the movies for what they were, the other ones that came out, because it was like, to be able to sit there and go, oh, that's a beholder, oh, that's an orc, or oh, that's this, that's that. I know what that is. And watching the previews for this, you got a gelatinous cube, which is cool. They use it to hide, which is really funny. But there's a mimic, you know? There's dwarves, which dwarves. There's all kinds of people in it.
No gnomes. Eric's going to be so disappointed.
So sad. So sad.
He has nothing to throw his popcorn at them. No.
I gotta say, I'm gonna go see the movie, and I hope that my inner 10-year-old is entertained and I have fun. I'm worried that my Forgotten Realms lore person brain is going to distract me, and I'm going to be locking on things in the background or offhand mentions, and I'll not be paying attention to the story because they got that right, they got that wrong.
Okay, you need to go into the movie. You need to go into the movie knowing it's based loosely on Neverwinter, because it's Hollywood, and they're going to say, you know, if you think about it, what's the worst thing that people do when they come up to you at a convention? Let me tell you about my character. Let me tell you.
Do not tell me about your character.
Do not tell me. Let me tell you about the campaign. I think this would make a great book. And they proceed to sit there and talk to you, and your brain's going, "Shut off now, please. I can't do this." You know. So just if you go into it like I do on most movies, I go in to be entertained. I go in to lose reality for 2.5 hours, and as long as that movie does that for me, I'm great. You know.
Yeah. I mean, the movie's going to be shorter than a one-shot adventure, right? I mean, there's only so much you can show.
Exactly.
It's a vignette. Yeah, definitely.
It would make more sense if we had a television show.
So, can I ask a question? Let me ask Ed a question. Ed, a question
television show.
Yeah,
it would be better, you know, like a series. But Ed, what's it feel like to see the Forgotten Realms on really big really big screen.
Yeah.
This is your
I
creation.
am really delighted, and I'm really delighted for one thing. I can break NDAs on this because it doesn't matter now because it's 3 studios ago. That's the little secret. Every single major studio had a try at this.
Okay.
And Bob Salvatore and I were in the pitch meetings for a lot of them, which were all
sorry.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Let me tell you about Dritz. Let me tell you about my character.
Well, and that's the thing. One of the things way back in the day, there was Global Television in Canada owned something called Fireworks TV, which they later sold. And they wanted to make a Drizzt TV show.
Oh, wow.
And they actually said in the pitch meeting, it'll be really inexpensive because we can just set it in paper mache caverns underground. Not light anything properly. It'll be really cheap to do the shots. We can use footage over and over again. And I'm thinking, you're trying to do this as a selling point to the man, because right across the table from me is Bob. They put us across from each other, so we could kick each other under the table. I'm waiting for Bob, former New York or New Jersey bouncer,
Right.
Yeah.
to just come across the table and take the throat out of this person. And to his eternal credit, he said calmly, as I watch him bend the fork so that the fork is bending, he said, "And you think that's the selling point, eh?" But the thing is,
the downside.
well, yeah. But I was. They said, "What would you like to see in a Forgotten Realms movie?" Because they realized, okay, something's not right here. This Bob guy looks like he's going to pop off any moment now. There is a certain tension in the room, and his wife is holding him back.
Oh, wow.
So let's diffuse the situation by talking to the weird bearded guy. So Ed, what would you like to see in of the Forgotten Realms in a movie? Assuming that we didn't do Drizzt Underground, they said hastily, and I said, all I want, because I had very low expectations of what I thought they were capable of, but I didn't want to say that to them because I'm a polite Canadian, So I said, all I want you to do is show the viewers on screen what a huge, glorious world the Realms is. So even if we don't see too much of it in this little cavern you're showing us with Drizzt in it, they will know there's a whole world out there, and eventually we'll get to it.
Nice.
And they said, "Oh, that's cool. You should make movies, You're on this." And it was like, oh, for God's sake. But that want-see, being as you asked, that want-see still stands. That's what I want it to do. And I happen to know that it does do that.
Excellent.
You do get to see a world laid out in front of us in the same way that in various different ways the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies showed us gorgeous scenery and drove home over and over again the fact that the mortal beings, even the dragons, even the eagles, the big powerful things, the mortal beings are like ants compared to these mountain ranges that are there and will always be there. And I just want to say one thing about the Peter Jackson trilogy. I happened to attend a screening where we took some local seniors from a seniors shut-in home to see Lord of the Rings. They were not fantasy fans. They knew nothing about this. But they said, "Sure, we'll go. You're taking us. It's free. We'll go." Because they were used to being shut in their rooms and they're waiting for end of life. And this was, oh, somebody's going to take us somewhere and show us something. We're in. I don't care what it is. We're in. And that scene of the lighting of the beacons, where
Across the mountains.
Gandalf says hope is kindled, and then the whole orchestra starts playing, and you're panning across all these beacons being lit, and you're in the air, presumably a drone, and you're looking down on these snowy mountain ranges, and all the seniors leaned forward and they all said, "Ah," because when you're confined to a wheelchair or your room, and you know you're there for the rest of your life, whether anybody's going to admit it to you or not, the idea of being able to fly over mountains just once, and not have to go there, not have to be in pain going through airports, not having to do any of that stuff. You can just fly over the mountain. That to them was absolutely magical. And I would like to see moments like that in the movies where people can go, "Oh, I don't care. I don't know what the story was and I don't care. But wasn't it cool when they did that thing?" And I want moments like that in the movie. That to me is the big thing, because we all remember the smart ass quips. You were talking earlier about Harrison Ford. All of his characters back then, that's what they were. It was smart ass quip after smart ass quip. And Deadpool and so on. Now it's the smart ass quips we remember. And even in a fantasy setting, one of the best lines in the Jackson movies is in the Hobbit movie, where Radagast says, "Careful, it could be a trap." and Gandalf says, "Well, of course it's a trap," and walks in, and everybody in the theater goes, "Wow!" And as a movie maker, I think that's a brilliant scene. Right. Because even if you don't know anything about the books and you don't know anything about Gandalf, that one line captured the character.
Yep.
If you don't know anything about Gandalf, okay, you got him now. You've just heard it. You've heard and seen him. You know what you're dealing with, and to do it just in one throwaway line under his breath as you're moving to the next scene, perfect.
I think just related, Ed, as you talk about that too, and for the new D&D movie, it's you get a nod toward, if you're a Lord of the Rings fanatic, which I was at the time when I first saw the film the first time, you see all those things and all the nods, and it's there, but there's not stuck in your face, like, okay, look, it's Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully the same thing for Forgotten Realms, right? And people who know the realms can have that nod towards it and see what they recognize. But,
we can hope,
but not not put it out there.
This is what I think worked so well with when Kubrick did 2001, which I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to realize how groundbreaking that was at the time.
Yes.
Okay, but what really sold it and what impressed the hell out of my dad so much that he went and saw it with friends from work, all the Defense Department guys. And then he went to see it a second time with a second crew of people from work. And then he took me. So he sat through it 3 times. And he sat through it because he thought, yeah, my son should see this. And it wasn't just all the apes banging bones and the wonderful Blue Danube scene, which my dad was vastly impressed as a chorister. He was loving that.
Right.
But for him, he said, what works for the movie, and he didn't tell me at the time, he talked to me years later because he wanted to see if I got it on my own. He didn't want to talk to me. He wanted to see. And he said, what made that movie so realistic? And I said that everybody treated it like it was a working day, like they were used to all this spacecraft.
Yeah.
When they're flying across the surface of the moon in the shuttle, they're talking to each other. They're waiting to get off shift. They're talking about what they're going to do on their day off. It's just a normal working day. And because of that, it sold it to you that this is all real.
Right.
And Aliens had that too, actually.
Yeah.
The first Aliens film.
Yeah. But
it was standard operating procedure. It was just all SOP,
But Aliens did it with the gritty look. I mean, Star Wars did it with everything was shiny and new look, but they still managed to pull it off. But that's the thing. If the realms feels real in the movie because people are living in it, so they're not going, gosh, wow, we're in a big movie. they're saying, "Oh darn, is the dragon coming again?" Just before I get the crops in, they always come before I, if it feels like they're living in it and it's real, then it will have achieved its purpose because it will work on screen for me.
I wonder if it would have been better to place the movie in Waterdeep.
Except that would Waterdeep is such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It would dominate the movie as a setting, and if you don't put it in Waterdeep at the beginning, and you keep it on your characters, because I can't talk about that because that's NDA.
Damn it!
But if you
I can talk about an idea. Simply the basic problem. If you start with Waterdeep, it gives you that feel that it's Lankmar, it's Fritz Leiber, and that becomes everybody decides no, this is what everybody wants. So you end up with fantasy urban adventures instead of the sprawl, the vista, as it were.
Yeah,
I think it could be remedied by more sunshine, but otherwise, but hey, I hate to do this, but shotguns
and sorcery. Okay,
so
let's do this quick
clean
here
up J. Jonah Jameson's cigar ashes or what? No.
we're gonna lose Matt here in a few minutes, so we should make sure we promote the crap out of
it. No, we mustn't be careless. We mustn't lose Matt.
We have to take better care.
We have to take better
care. Going to press on Monday, and they're like, "Are you done with the final edit yet?" I'm like, "I'm close, but
well, Matt, if we just don't tell them you've been on air all this time,
nobody will know.
Nobody will know. It'll be our secret.
What's their email address that we can send the Twitch link to?
So. The internet's a great place to keep a secret.
Yes. We don't. Nobody looks at the internet. It's just a fad.
So what's the last thing, Matt? Is the last thing you'd like to say?
It's
about
knobs and tubes. No.
Well, I always have a great time talking with you guys, and honestly, if I had the time, I'd be here all goddamn night. And hopefully I'll come back and do it again with y'all. But this always just reminds me of sitting with my friends at conventions and having a beer. And the point. That's the best part of it. So, just buy shotguns and sorcery. That's what you're supposed to do. Buy the Marvel game when it comes out because I'm very excited about that too. That's going to be.
I'm excited about that too. Big Marvel fan.
There we go.
I love that Jeff's got the green screen coming in. It's like, everything disappears.
I know. What we should do, Matt, is have you on again when we can run through a sample of how to play.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just to play, nothing fantastic. So it's all kinds of questions. And
we produced a bunch of stuff for the Cypher system setting, but then. What we did is we took all of that stuff, the adventures, the monster books, all that stuff, and put it into this one book, right?
Right.
With the Gilded Edges.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's what I have. I have the Gilded Edges.
At least
Matt actually hand tipped these himself.
I have children for it. No.
I am so glad Jeff didn't say, "Oh, we'll have you on when you aren't on deadline," because I'm picturing you in your casket. There he's not on deadline. Finally.
Yeah, you promised, Matt. Wake up.
I don't ever plan to retire, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Why the hell would you give this stuff up?
That's the thing about a writer is you don't have to retire. I mean, look at Anne Rice. Look at all these different writers. They wrote until they dropped dead. I mean, come on.
My wife will retire, but I'm going to still be over there in the corner going, "Excuse me, I got to go do this."
So I know that you have to go. So we're talking about mattforbeck.com, shotgunsandsorcery.com. Is that I tried to find the link and it came up. Was that the
it should take you to the
Kickstarter, right?
Yep, the Kickstarter.
Pre-order now, but I don't see it where you can get the source book.
Yeah, if you just scroll down a little bit, there's the 5e source book deluxe hardcover, and then there's all the other stuff just below that. So,
Shotguns and Sorcery. Oh, this is. I'm on the wrong. Apparently, I'm on the wrong page. How's that?
Nice job.
Welcome to life, Jeff. You're on the wrong page.
This is why my wife runs my life, because I would just sit here in the corner and pee on myself, and that's about it.
Or you go to Forbeck.com. You can see all the shit there. All sorts of stuff.
Yes, here it is. Here it is. Here it is.
I found it.
It's on Forbeck.com.
There.
Yeah.
I see it.
So we'll do a giveaway. We'll try to get people involved and yeah, I'll just pick up another book and do a player's guide or something. But I don't think the source book is available, is it?
Yeah, no, well, it should be up for sale there on the thing. In fact, I'm just looking at it right now. The copy I have up there has a black cover, which was the promotional idea, right? And then we're like, I think red is better. It's a red dragon. We should go with that. And directly below that, you can see the Shotguns and Sorcery, the 5e sourcebook hardcover. It's also shotguns-and-sorcery.backerkit.com, which is what that Shotguns and Sorcery should take you to.
Oh.
I just did it here. I promise you it does work.
No, I believe you. I believe you. There's people that are much better than I am at doing this, so they can definitely show me how to find it. But we'll find it, get one up, and give it away. So
yeah, I have it set to automatically redirect to the Backer Kit pre-order site or post campaign site. So
I have no idea when I'm supposed to get it. Is this the only thing I get for my $100? I mean, I'm not complaining.
All sorts of shit. I forget.
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying this is what I get. I didn't because
most of it was virtual. Beyond that, you got like PDFs and stuff and the virtual tabletop. And
I wasn't complaining. I just saying,
Jeff, you ungrateful slut.
I know. I was thinking that maybe there was more things coming into
What are you saying here, Jeff? That's what I want to know.
Hey, I paid $100 for a good time. I'm waiting on it.
And this is why we get the views. Yep.
That's right.
This is it.
Okay, Matt, we'll let you go. Let you go earn your money.
Good luck with the deadline, man.
Thanks again for having me on. I appreciate
See
it.
you, Matt. We'll have you back soon.
I'll see you at Gary Con. Hopefully,
yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for coming again. We really appreciate it. Now, MattForbeck.com, the Shotguns and Sorcery.
Just
Forbeck.com.
Okay.
And are you on any other social media, like Instagram or?
I'm on Twitter at mforbeck, and I'm on Facebook at Forbeck, and Instagram, and every other goddamn one that's ever been. MySpace,
The question is, are you on Grindr?
So you haven't taken down your MySpace page?
Are you on Grindr? That's all I want to know. Are you just
a
sorcerer?
I have a story about that, but it involves we'll tell it some other time.
We'll tell it some other time. Okay.
A different show, different channel.
Take care.
Really big show. Really big show.
Take care of yourselves.
Bye, Matt. Thanks again for coming. Appreciate it. Okay.
So now that he's gone, let's start talking about all the multiversal walls falling among his properties. And it's the Forbeck verse, multiverse of madness.
One world,
real.
Does that involve portals to the realms?
It does.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God,
back in the days of Comics Journal, it certainly did. When Matt did that cartoon there.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That's right. And also all the double diamond stuff he did.
Yep.
As well. No, absolutely.
I can't speak of those. Sorry.
Why can't you speak
Sure
of
you
those?
can.
I don't want to.
Oh, okay. No, that is perfectly sensible.
That's different.
I get that.
That's different.
Yeah.
I played that game a long time ago. Yeah.
No, actually, one thing I was going to mention. I don't know if anybody's read the Laura Ann Gilman fantasy author. She got a trilogy from a couple of years back called The Devil's West, which was twigging in my back brain while we were talking shotguns and sorcery. And it's a alternate history fantasy where the devil owns a large chunk of territory that was in used to be owned by the French or something. The Louisiana Purchase never happened, so it's a fascinating thing, but it could easily fit in the same vein as shotguns and sorcery. There's some cool stuff there. So
like I said, we'll have him back. We'll actually have him run through how to play the game, how to make characters, things to do.
I would enjoy that.
I think that would be awesome, actually. So
I meant to ask him a question. I wanted to see what his, other than the games that he's designed, what is a regular tabletop that they play at the Forbeck household?
That's a good one.
I would, if I had to guess, I know that he always had an annual, at least an annual game of Munchkin at Gen Con with Andrew Hackard before he passed away way too young. But but I think Matt is kind of like all of us. He's played so many things, he's not going to be able to pick out a favorite. But
yeah, I always think that's one of the most invidious questions. What's your favorite? That's like asking a man like Matt, who's had all these children, what's your favorite child? How is he supposed to answer that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Which one's your favorite?
Ed, who's your favorite friend? No, sorry.
Who's your favorite Canadian?
There you go.
Oh, I can't tell you.
You just say they're not here.
But she's no.
It's not Rob Ford. We know that.
No, it's not Rob Ford. No, strangely enough, it's not Rob Ford. No, but I think a much better way to always phrase that question is, so if you wanted to try something different tonight, what would leap into your mind to play? Because then they can talk about what they've managed to grab copies of. And it sort of deflects the question sideways, and it's way more interesting to find out from that point of view.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the thing of, what's the last game you played that made you go, or made you laugh out loud, or really grabbed your attention? Like I just learned last week, first time I finally played Wingspan, and it's a fascinating game, and I like it, and the feel of it's cool. Is it an exciting game? No, it's a game of bird watching, but it's got some interesting mechanics, and it's a very beautifully put together game.
Yeah. But for Michiganians, that's like the height of entertainment, though, isn't it?
Oh, Jeff.
I'm sorry, you blinked out on me for a moment there.
Oh, Jeff.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's make a magical item or two.
I'm good with that.
So I have here, I think it's the first time I've opened this 5e Dungeon Master's Guide. So I have a magical item table here. So it's my job. It's our job to figure it out, but it's you guys. It's going to be Ed's job and Steven and maybe Grant to kind of flesh it out. Tell us about it.
What? Oh, I thought we were supposed to have something written up ahead of time. I did.
Oh no! If you did, perfect.
No.
This is like improv. This feels like.
Let's see what the dice tell us. Come on.
I'd rather hear what
this is.
We've got
no. I want to see what he had done up before time.
Yeah, me too.
Lets us all off the hook.
Well, now I got to
kind of like the improv
thing. Okay.
Well, let's say. Go ahead.
Unlike previous times, I didn't try to come up with like an artifact or a relic or whatever, though it has ties to a church if you want it to.
Okay,
sure.
But I tentatively called them rings of praying with an E.
Okay.
They are an old. They're considered a heretical item by certain religions, but they used to be made by priests of Malar way back when, the Beast Lord. I think I'm remembering this right. I don't have gods on the brain like Eric Boyd does. I don't remember them all perfectly.
No, he just thinks of gnomes.
But the first time these popped into the realms was back in the days of the Shun Imperium, where they had a part to play with, hunts that the nobles like to set up. And they weren't particularly, nice, because they would be hunting slaves or whatever. But in any case, what's happening of late, I mean, obviously there's been bits and pieces of this these rings popping up over more than 1,000 years, but they haven't been heard of in ages until recently, where bodies have been turning up, either torn to shreds or possibly even consumed down to bones in places. People of various and different species, humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, whatnot, and they're not putting it together entirely because the bodies are too spread apart over time, over space. But all of them, when somebody does put these clues together, they're all wearing the corpse will have a ring on it. And it's this dull steel, not polished or anything. When you do get it off a finger, you'll notice that there's, scratches on the bone of the finger bone beneath that ring. But when you take the ring off, it's just got this smooth kind of copperish color inside. And anybody who picks it up, you can sense it's got magic in it. You can even identify it as healing magic and some divinations as well. So anybody who's dumb enough to put one of these on,
I heard that one coming.
They're fine. You can take it, pull it off, put it on, until you become wounded or any bit of blood of any kind comes into contact with the ring. Then barbs will come from the inside of the ring and sink into all the way through to the bone. And you're not getting that ring off without losing that finger. Or remove
marriage.
Huh?
Marriage. That's right.
But
it's a form of ball and chain a little bit.
But here's the kicker. It's a ring of praying. Now it does heal you. It gives you a hit point an hour, and it staunches any bleeding. If you've got open wounds, it will stop them. You will not, die from, successive bleeding over rounds or whatever. The problem is the ring it will stop your bleeding and it will give you some hit points back. It will keep you alive, but it will also enhance the smell of blood and your personal scent, such that anything that might track by scent is twice as likely to find you.
Oh, great.
So yes, it will keep you alive, so the hunt goes on longer. In any case, for some reason or other, and there may or may not be a story to it, these rings haven't been seen in over 300 years, but now there's been at least 2 bodies showing up on the Sword Coast, a couple over on the Dragon Coast, and further south in Tethir. So, the fact that there's more than 6 of these rings suddenly popping up in the last 5 years, something's going on, but the story has yet to be written. So
that's a good ring. I like that one quite a bit, and I like it a lot of it because it's Malar the Beast Lord, and it's very
I like that much. I didn't want to do this ring is going to end the world. I mean, come on, what's the fun of that? Who the hell makes something like that? The world where we keep our stuff. Though I'm sure if I gave this idea to Ed an hour and a half before this, it would have been made much better.
Well, if you gave it to Eric a week ago, he'd have 30 pages written up on it.
Eric needs an editor someday. I love him dearly, and he's an incredible lore. But there are times that the weight of history just bogs some things down from where's the story.
You're going to hear about this, Stephen.
I know.
The funny part
I'm also I've had bosses dress me down for having written 27 pages of history in Lands of Intrigue, and that's always page count. Like,
you had the wrong friends back then.
That's
why.
right.
Well,
That's right.
Yeah, but it was just when I finally pointed out in the 27 pages here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 magical items that they can track down. Here's 8 dungeons, other things. Every single page of that wasted space history has more seeds than you realize because you didn't read it.
Yeah.
Wait, didn't Lands of Intrigue have one of the best productions with the color photos, or was that another thing you did?
One more time, I'm sorry.
Wasn't Lands of Intrigue the one who like you had like $1 million for budgeting where you could do every page was a color page and
No.
Which one was it that you did that everybody said was that the I thought there was one you did where it's like you had a budget of endless money to do. It looked like you did. You really didn't, but
the one that I mean, from a component end, I think City of Splendors, the box set from '94.
That's it.
And that was one I remember because Jeff Grubb was the product manager. We sat down with Mike Martin, who was the VP of Finance, and he approved all of the changes because we were swapping out components left and right to get as much as we could in that for the price point, and he approved it. So if that didn't make any profit, well, that was on his head, not mine. That we got his approval to get in all these components. He's like, well, if we give up X number of pages, can we get cards for them? Like, I think we were basing it off of the Undermountain box, and well, if we don't do all those little half-sized cards, can I get a few more pages in the book? He says, oh yeah, man, that's so that's why we got the 3 books instead of 2 and so forth and so on. But yeah, all of those posters, I think part of it was we felt we had to do all the poster maps because they hadn't been done in color since FR1.
Right.
Or was it? No, it was City System was the last time some of those maps hadn't been done. So
I remember that.
It had been more than 10 years. They were due.
They were due. Okay. Would you have any other? Do you have any other magical items you drew up in the pre-show?
Nope. I'm waiting for my brain to translate what you just said.
Oh, sorry. Do you have any other magical items you did ahead of time?
No, that was the one that I toyed with, and just the idea of finding bodies out in the wilderness that look like they've been torn to shred by animals,
but you don't know why.
And you can't necessarily track. You can't track down. Yeah. See, those Canadians, I learned their secret earlier this year. They take all their anger and hate and they put it in Canadian geese.
I mean, what else do Canadians have to do when for half the year they're stuck behind 6 feet of snow?
Jeff, this is a family show.
No, I already put down here that we're not family friendly, so we're good.
Oh, okay. Well, then you know exactly what they do for all the time.
That's right, and that's why every time spring comes around, or just the time the winter comes back, the population goes up a little bit.
Yep, bingo.
Okay,
my next trick.
Your next trick, that's right. So let's do a magical item that Stephen didn't do. So Curry, why don't you roll that die and tell me what number you get? Actually, do a percentile die. You're on mute. Do a percentile die. Give me something between 1 and 100.
1 and 100.
Yeah.
Looks like
93.
93.
Ooh, 93. Spell Guard Shield. So, I don't know what a Spell Guard Shield is. This is, I'm guessing it's like a guard against certain types of spells, or
there's a city with a particular spell guard is their honorific or knightly order. They're mage fighters or something.
Ed, do you know?
Well,
shield.
We already have Sahara Guard or Spell Guard for
It
short.
says, while holding the shield, you have advantage on saving throws against spells or other magical effects, and spell attacks have disadvantage against you. So it's a held item.
So it might be like a particular group or that
class of
doesn't
spells
use magic
like
might use
like evocation. Oh, maybe it's just against only evocation or transmutation or.
Am I just an old fart here? But that's, if you're talking, this is a power for a shield. That's an awfully big thing to carry around for such a minor effect.
Well, it depends on what it is.
It's not actually a shield. I think it's just an item that you possess that creates a spell guard, and it's just
okay.
I thought like the Ring of Prey. It may be a side effect of the Ring of Prey, where it's also a spell guard, but at the same time, it's causing you to give off.
If you were to place it in the realms,
well, it does say that it is a shield. It's a shield with an armor class of 2. So. Stephen may have a point.
Let's don't make it a shield then. Let's make it something different.
But wait a minute, guys. Although I can understand when people object to cursed items, as in who would ever make such a thing in a real world as opposed to for a story. But there are plenty of things that we look back on. Say the first mobile phone, and they were these huge bricks with an antenna. Okay, there are plenty of things that don't seem practical to us now.
Sure,
that might have been the best that somebody could make at the time.
Right.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a shield.
Yeah, it could be any item that has this effect, but it would be used by folks who are scared of magic or want to fight, or perhaps are against another nation that's magical next to them that is aggressive, and they would have defenses.
Like
right? Or
yeah,
even
so maybe you would put this in Rashomon, or
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be perfect. Or even
thinking about cultural,
barbarian tribes, maybe to their warriors or to their chieftains.
I mean, this is more powerful than you think, right? Meaning, if you have saving throws and you have advantage in 5e, right, you're going to roll twice. Half damage, more likely, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
If you think of it, an army, a whole army having these shields, of warriors, you would.
Right.
So kind of that's how I see this concept, right? Of this.
Yeah, but you can make it,
and we can take this any direction that we want. This could just be the basics of where this item starts: a shield with a spell guard property, and then we just put a comma and go, and then.
That's true.
Then.
Yeah, I have to admit,
then
I want to rescind my objection earlier. It didn't sound from the face of it that it was all that impressive, but that's because I'm not all that up on 5e mechanics. It's like, okay, if you've got to re-roll all these effects.
Yeah, their advantage is take the best roll, roll twice and take the best roll, or disadvantage, have the other one have the attacker roll twice and take the lower roll always. Right. This is very powerful in 5e. Very, very powerful.
Well, you're our 5e expert here, so you can let us know.
Oh, I'm making it up. No guys.
but Grant, that's how most experts go through the world.
That's right.
They BS that they know what they're doing.
Well, in this case, I actually do know you roll 2 dice.
Well, think about it. Ed is the king of making things up. He did that for a living.
Okay. Well, let's put this to
shit up for a living. Yeah.
Let's put this to a vote, guys. We have a basis. How many properties would we like to give our item? Would we like to roll for the amount of properties that it has on like a D4 or a D6 and then continue to create from there?
No, I think we should just create.
Okay, because I guess the question, do we want to keep it a shield, or are we sticking with the spell guard property and we're attaching that to something else?
Like an amulet or a
like
ring.
that. Yeah.
I almost like the image of, like, from ancient Atalanta, some of those things that the Goths like, those kind of metal chainmail netting gloves without fingers, but just gems on the knuckles or something.
Yep.
What
Sounds
about
good to me.
what about it's almost like a christening of a barbarian baby of Rosh with this property? That yeah, it becomes innate. I'm trying to make it more realms.
You want to make it a tattoo or something, or a birthmark?
Tattoo. Yeah, tattoo.
A
be
Spellguard
fantastic.
tattoo. I like the idea. I mean,
well, then if we're
Alias, we'll call her Alias.
Alias.
If we go that far into current relevant content, could we not take that from the tattoo idea to a spell scar idea?
Sure.
Spell scar.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If we're talking about current relevant times, I mean,
yeah. And everybody feels sorry for the poor little baby who's born with that nasty spell scar until they see what it does someday.
Right.
I think I may have jumped out of the realm of what we were doing, because now we're not creating items anymore. We're just giving something to someone naturally from an event.
Yeah.
You
My bad.
are the item.
And thus our story is born.
Is there any other effects you would, as you said, there were properties, right? D4, what, I mean, this is pretty powerful in its own right. Would you add other properties other than characteristics or cultural elements? Would you actually enhance it, change it?
I mean, we could make it more prevalent in a certain society, like you said, like in Rashomon or something like that, or somebody who would really need that protection, that it's enhanced, like there's a cultural enhancement to it. Maybe they're attuned. I don't think they still do attuned. They still do attuned things in 5e.
Yep.
Do they? So
they do
yeah,
indeed.
you could do
yeah.
So if you use it just as a regular person, if it's, let's say it's a glove, or partial glove, like you said, a ring with chainmail hook that goes around the wrist, you would say that, they get this one spell shielding effect. But if you are of certain descent and it's attuned to you, you get that plus like two other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
Why not? You can enhance it to a spell reflection instead of just, instead of it being a, either or for effect. It's you just reverse the target to the caster, original caster or something.
You know what I would like? The fact that it isn't your lineage or something, or your race or your class or anything. It's if you accomplish something, like go on a quest and do something. Because I always thought it was a real rip that, it's you get the treasure and you can't use it, wrong class for you, so I'll keep it. That sort of thing. I used to think, what a rip.
I don't like that either. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. So it could be something like it's like it enhances your rep. Even you could say, it could be anybody who can use it.
Yeah.
You cannot wear the Duck of Doom upon your
That's
helmet.
right. Nobody.
You are not a gnome.
Nobody picks up a duck in a dungeon. What are you, crazy?
Dear.
Okay. So what other enhancing qualities would it have?
Not the Duck of Doom.
I was gonna say that's all I'm thinking of now is the Duck of Doom.
Well, and maybe it's not maybe part of that quest to enhance it is you take it to a certain site, and the person who bears it, assuming you take it and you immerse it in the waters of the this
Mandalore?
No, I'm trying to remember. There's the Unicorn Run in
yes.
You take it
in the
to
high
a particular
forest.
You take it into the pool where LaRue allegedly bathed for an evening or whatever, and that will enhance the powers of this thing 100-fold.
LaRue's skinny dipping pool.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that idea of an enhancement from LaRue. Or one of the things about being in a party or a group that one of the characters has this shield or a device is we would love the attacking magical creatures or other NPCs to attack this. Beware of this because they're more protected. Maybe there's an attractive quality, more likely to attack this character with magic, because of whatever, So that maybe that's an enhancement.
It has more likely. It has the drawback of it's a target for magic.
Yeah, but they're the best protected against it too, right?
Yeah,
they're
right.
Always,
Okay.
Yeah. It has a taunt factor of, yes, any magic user is going to see that and say, that's the guy I've got to shoot.
Yeah, it's got a certain
it's
got a certain gleam to it that says, I want that, so I'm going to go after it.
Okay.
He has that certain je ne sais blast,
Je ne sais blast. I want it. I want it.
Like if a red wizard of Thay or a Zent or saw it, they go, I'm gonna go get that thing.
No, I like that.
Of course, you can get that effect just by writing Zent.
Well, it doesn't matter. True. The greedy will always want. That's true. But so that's one enhancement.
Oh yeah, I like. Of course,
what would you call it? What did you call it exactly? What enhancement would you call it?
Drawn attention? I don't know.
No, they already used the phrase attraction in the game for that.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, Gleam of the Vorax. I don't know.
Oh.
Vor of the Gleamax.
Oh no, you can't use Gleamax.
No, not the Gleamax is here for you.
They don't have sweet, happy memories of Gleamax.
No, they don't.
I was thinking of the Orumvirax.
Right
remember that creature, the Orumvirax?
Yes, I do.
That's what I was thinking in relationship to.
Yeah.
I can't find Gleamax, but I found a Game Hole Con Orc.
I've got Gleamax here somewhere.
I have the little brain.
Yeah.
So do I. I have the little brain somewhere. Okay, so
and that's a high lob for anyone.
Yeah.
Sorry. Would we want to give it some other? I always, there's a part of me that always, the few times I do play fighters, I'm always torn between, I want the extra ability of having the shield, but sometimes I do want to be able to fight two-handed and still have that defense. So it's like having some way for the shield to stay with me without having to hold it would be, handy.
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
Almost
so it can float midair.
Yeah, it kind of hovers
like a shield,
yeah, like a wizard shield spell, but a physical shield.
Oh, you mean like the cape for Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you're a barbarian doing two-handed stuff, it would be awesome to have that shield, right?
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about.
I'd rather have Thor's hammer. When he says you forgot your umbrella, and you hear crash, crash, crash.
Boom.
So we've got a cousin. We've got a dancing sword spell, right? And that's
true.
That animates by itself without being wielded by the caster. Some kind of derivative of a dancing shield.
Yeah.
So it's an actual item that floats freely and acts in defense of the wielder, caster, possessor, however you want to define it.
You could even tie it to a cleric and have it be literally, you have spiritual weapon on the cleric spell list. Why not have spiritual shield?
True.
Something more akin to like what a crusader style cleric would be. Would that fit?
Yeah, sure, that'd be fine.
Okay. All right.
I like that. Yeah, because when you just say dancing shield, I'm thinking, and there it is, fox trotting across the.
That's right.
So we have.
Pretty soon your barbarian is doing the moon dance across the middle.
Yeah.
and the shield is doing nothing but reflecting light into Zaztam's eyes.
Yeah.
Sparkling lights that come down.
There is there is a Realmsian 3.5 item, the Hammer Sphere, which you conjure the hammer, right? It's a dwarven item. and it floats and attacks on its own. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of items that float like that. I almost think of almost like Star Wars and Luke and the little thing. He's got to hit the blindfold. He's got to hit the little floating
Right.
Yeah, the
orb,
trainer,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, the trainer. So almost, but this is on your side, right? This is fighting for, it's really
Correct.
defensive. It's as spells coming towards you. Hey, it's moving in this way, maybe staying within a few feet of you at all times.
And heck, if it is raining, you can just have it hover over your head.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? It's a tower shield, right?
It's a
doubles as an
multitasker.
umbrella. The other, if you really lean into the anti-magic theme of this item, the other thing it could do potentially, and these are all different properties. I can't imagine giving this all to one item, but just one of these things. But it could be, hey, in the quest side, we talked about a quest for a barbarian, to go after a necromancer or an evil wizard, whatever it is, sorcerer, whatever it is almost like, when you're in the proximity of magic or evil magic, that the shield could point the way to the evil magic too,
like a compass.
Almost like a compass. Like if it has that floating capability, it could lead you to that evil magic,
So
whether it's very local within
like
range.
An aura of detect evil.
Yeah, and probably even more specific, detect evil magic, right? Or something like,
Yeah,
but
limit it sharply in distance.
Range. Yeah, probably.
Range.
As in it only detects necromancy or.
Yeah, or also if you're in battle with another party, the idea that there is one person on that other side that's evil, is that evil magic user that.
Or did you mean something more physical, like a linear detection, like a cone or a distance, Ed?
Yeah,
more the following thing, I think. But
yeah, I was thinking keeping it very limited because the game has been moving away from long range and infallible or really powerful detection because it takes away role-playing opportunities and it handcuffs the dungeon master who's trying to put traps in. No, that's a trap, sort of thing. And while that's fun for a player staying alive, it actually each time it's taking away role-playing fun.
Okay.
And it's taking it away from the table, away from the it's just it becomes an automatic power thing. And I agree with that. Let's shutter that sort of power. Let's make it let's make the game more interesting by you can still be surprised by things. It's the old thing of if people can mind read, it's harder to tell a murder mystery. If you're writing an old golden age murder mystery in which nobody knew about fingerprints or blood types or anything, it's easier to do something. And you could say, yeah, well, you should have to work for things. But yeah, at the same time, if it's a case of ruining some of the possible fun at the table, let's not do it in our item design because we're cutting off the fun right at the beginning as opposed to a choice thing.
Right.
So maybe that kind of detection is not desirable, in the game, or very limited, very vague.
Yeah.
It can get you to a place, but it's not going to do much else for you.
Yeah. Remember the original augury in first edition, Wheel or Woe. And that was so limited. And sometimes the dungeon master would go, Wheel.
That's like the 8 ball with the we got the Eye of Sabras. The Eye of Sabras.
Eye of Sabras is what we have. Yeah, ask again later.
Just send you in circles. Send you in circles.
Excuse me for 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Should we move on to another magic item?
Sure, absolutely. So we have the
we didn't give a name.
Fun, though. We didn't give a name for it though. We have the dancing shield of Baba Yaga. I don't know.
Let's not have any more Baba Yaga stuff. Come on.
I know.
It's like there was only one shop open in the entire eastern Russian steppes,
Here we have Baba Yaga.
Yes.
We have Baba Yaga's clothing. Over here we have Baba Yaga's bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and it becomes the same sort of joke we used to get in Britain. Henry VIII slept here. Henry VIII slept there.
Here.
Henry VIII, it's like, okay, we get it already.
He was a slut. We understand.
Yeah, we get that.
Pretty much just say he slept somewhere, everywhere in England. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Curry, roll another.
What would you like? Percentile?
No, let's do another magical item here. Do a percentile again. If I like it, we'll do it.
hey,
That's how it goes.
who made you, Lorraine Williams?
That's right.
2021.
21. We have, oh God, Holy Avenger. No.
Yay.
Yeah, we'll do a Holy Avenger.
That's
Holy
over the
Avenger of
top.
who? But it doesn't have
I
to.
do, yeah.
Oh,
Gotta dig into that.
no, I know what to do a Holy Avenger on.
What's that?
Anybody who's holy. It's time.
What
It's
do you mean?
retribution time. It's retribution time. It's an item that goes after anybody who's holy. So it goes after all the paladins. It goes
Oh.
after all the high priests.
Oh, so it's avenging against a holy.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's Avenger against the Holy.
It's a Holy Avenger.
Oh, like the anti-paladin back in the day, right?
Yeah. Because equal time, man. Equal time. It's their turn.
Holy
no.
Avenger. The anti-holy
So
Avenger.
you're calling it the Retributive Holy Avenger. Or
Retributive.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I think that's where you were going with it. I think that's what you were trying to say, but
Yeah.
but I think, yeah, that's interesting.
We'll call
Is it its own thing? Is it an intelligent weapon then that's doing it? Is it a unique item?
I would say that it's a thinking item.
Heretical weapon. There you go, Stephen.
Yeah, and it keeps refining what it thinks with its growing life experience.
Ooh, and we can call it Boltron.
Nice.
So it's not only heretical, it's also
No.
hereditary. Could it be tied to a particular family
Yeah.
and be bound to a lineage of a certain family?
Like the Wyvern Spur, right?
Yeah, but like that. But maybe it's corrupting. It corrupts this family.
Ooh, so
the doom of the Baskervilles.
Oh, there you go. The doom of Heartsfire. There you go.
It's a bit, the Anne Rice novel. What's the Vengeful Spirit?
Oh yeah, okay.
Lasher, is it?
Yeah.
I can't remember, but it haunts and stays with the family, and ultimately it's got a breeding program.
Yes.
To try
Yes.
so it can be born again into a living form. But it is entirely manipulative and awful.
Yeah. I was thinking that. Oh no, let's not go to the breeding program. Bang! Out you come.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No.
It's just I've read those sort of novels. I've written those sort of novels.
We don't have to go so far. You're true, but I think, the idea that it perhaps was a living ancestor and is bound to a family, but is the retributive Holy Avenger. But if you want to go back to the Holy Avenger idea that it's against a church, maybe it's against a particular church.
Yeah.
That wronged the family a long time ago or wronged this entity.
Yeah. Yeah, not the faith, a particular church.
Right.
Yeah.
A particular church.
In a church that's grown to great power, so it can't be some little rinky-dink church somewhere.
Yeah, and we're talking over centuries, right? You're talking over something that happened a long time ago to this individual. Maybe the act of being trapped in the sword, because he was a jerk, a bully.
Well, think about it. It disguises itself as it gives us the aura or to the person it attaches to that it's not a retributive weapon. That it is an actual Holy Avenger. So it has.
So you might want to loosen it up from a family in that case and just say whoever it's a wanderer. It wanders across the face of the realms against this particular church,
right?
Trying to eradicate it.
Well, that or it is for a particular. They're waiting for. It's kind of like waiting for Luke Skywalker type of thing. They're waiting for the right ancestor to wield this weapon again against the church and to bring them back to do their holy vengeance.
And that's a very good point, because that's something we always used to level at when we were plotting novels for the realms. We would always say, why now? If this thing was predestined for eons, why is it waited until this moment when your player characters show up? What's the reason for now? Right. And if you know the answer to that, you don't always have to give it in the novel, but I figure the writer needs to know it.
Right.
Because it makes the whole thing stronger. And in this case, for an item that has that, we need to know why now. What is the triggering thing now? That's a good thing to have because it means
a hook or a chance encounter.
Well, it could be the fact that they were excavating for a new faction of the church in a town that used to be popular, that's been lost to history, and they uncover this person's grave or this person holding this, the dead person that's in the sword.
We'll call it the mummy. No,
the mummy. There you go. But no, they find this artifact, or they find an artifact that has this being in it. Then it gets transferred maybe to a weapon or something. But yeah, I mean,
okay, let's maybe broaden our horizons. So when you think about specifically against a type of church, you would think normally, unless you're me, you would think normally that it's a bad force or an evil thing, as where I, Curry, kind of like the fascination that Stephen has, is a bit more, if there was a way to interpret it, Denier driven, where think for yourself, silly man, come to your own conclusions. And maybe it's an agnostic, because there's a far less written about agnosts, atheists in the realms, where it's not an evil force against a good force. It's a, you fool, how did you believe in these things? Because maybe it was the vengeance is a family or a town or a kingdom beset by a holy war that destroyed a certain so and so because of the position of their faith, because might makes right. And this basically fell upon people that didn't necessarily ever have a faith or belief, or just never grew up in that culture, or maybe they were a bit more open by the ideas of what Denier would say, hey, think for yourself, figure these truths out for your own. And that person is just angry at what happened at the hands of a church some time ago, and thus this item came into being, or they were attracted to said item, and now they'll wield it for the vengeance of their family because of what was done in good works some time ago. It doesn't always necessarily have to be evil against good.
No.
And I think, again, it's a Holy Avenger sword too. So how do you does it, under what conditions is it enhanced? In that, Curry, if you take your thought there and say, and I like, there's a chat going on here, and Steven's an ideas guy, so he types here and they say maybe, like Cardinal Richelieu, not the whole church. So it's tied to, if you say it's Church of Denier, if used as an example, right? Curry, Denier,
dead or alive. I prefer
there's
dead.
Yeah, there's Richelieu was a well-known Machiavellian style, situation. You got this leader of the Denier church that, maybe follows the tenets, but has done some bad things,
Sure.
And has created this situation. What are the conditions, if we start to now think of characteristics of the sword, trying to make it real, and what are the conditions for the sword to be that retributive Holy Avenger,
Because again, you want the player characters to have some agency here, as opposed to the dungeon master knows all this plot stuff because, hey, it's in the rule book or whatever, and it's just going to be done to the player.
Right.
Yeah, and
right.
in 5e is very heroic, right? For the players, you are a hero. You are meant to succeed. You're meant to know things. You're meant, as you said, the agency side, right? So in some ways, if the right character gets, and you said this already, Ed, gets this sword, they are aware, and they can choose to flame on or flame off.
That's good.
You know, you know. But there might still be conditions. There still might be conditions for that flame on for that character.
No, yeah, there has to be something. There has to be some kind of detriment to me that would be on there, that it's because you have this person who's been waiting for their retribution for decades or
again,
centuries.
you can use that attunement idea in 5e too, right? You know, as soon as you become attuned, you are bonded. You know, and you can only attune if you meet certain conditions.
Yeah,
you know, that are tied to the storyline, right?
Right. I mean, Steven's got some ideas about it here, like what about giving it a special power that's indicative of what it hates, like extinguishes all flames in a 10-foot radius because the wielder or the family was killed by fire. You know, what's the drawback of wielding this is that you're going to blurt out every thought and are unable to keep anything secret. That's an idea. But no, what do you?
This is a tough one a little bit
because the job is to expose the secrets that are behind the death of whatever created it. You know, it's got that tie, so it's going to have a power that's tied directly to what it wants to do, which is expose that evil, or whatever you want to call it, the machinations of that one particular fellow. And unfortunately, it makes whoever's touching this thing, they're going to blurt out all their secrets too.
Right, but it also maybe you want it to be a wholly retributive avenger that's not a typical one, like some people in the chat, it could be cursed, of course, in that sense, but a perfect item for a bard, that they use. It could be they play out a tune all the time, or but it could be something that's hidden as an avenger that people wouldn't expect it to be, something that a cleric would carry, or that
nobody expects it.
That's true.
Sorry. I couldn't resist.
No, it's
I'm
good.
bad. I'll do my penance.
No, you won't. No, you're fine. Yeah, do your lashes. Oh, God.
So you're saying the comfy chair is one of these retributive items?
Yes, there you go. Not the comfy chair.
Have we taken this item I think we've taken it pretty far, because I think it's really ideas right around what a retributive holy avenger could be tied against any church, evil, good, whatever, a certain circumstance a long time ago, the death of that person's family, the containment of the spirit and the sword, whatever wrong was done, you could do it 20 different ways, and have these conditions for the storyline for the full powers of the sword to
and it could be that somebody in the church came to power who wants this to protect them from it. Their church could be an evil or good, but that's a hook. You could hire adventurers to go find this, but then once they get it, they can't help but wield it, and then they know what the true nature is.
Yeah, and that's a very old trope in the game. You might remember the Temple of Ra, cursed by Set, way back in the early days. That's a very intriguing thing, because it again, we're pointing the way to future stories.
Real good, Steven, go ahead, dude. Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Have a good night, guys.
All right, hopefully we'll see you. Hopefully we'll see you Saturday. I don't know. It just depends on.
I hope so. We'll see. All right.
All right. Bye. All right. Awesome. Now go ahead, Ed. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. That I got to the end of what I wanted to say. It sets up stories, potential stories, but it doesn't handcuff the DM and players into, you have to pursue this.
Right. No, exactly.
I like the idea about how it could be attributive to one's character and one's secrets, because, of course, some things from the disadvantaged side, you would not want to have revealed. But from someone of a great character and has a really cool moral value that has things that they've kept hidden from the public, things come out about them of things that are virtuous and or important to them, that kind of explains not necessarily the retribution that is about to occur, but rather the revelation of the two truths. It creates like this reckoning between the two revelations of what has been kind of outed between the wielder and the person they're about to reckon with.
Yep. Yeah, no, I get where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very powerful storytelling device. I don't know if we need to go add characteristics, because I think depending on the church, depending on the situation, or the retributive party that the sword is after, you could really play with all kinds of characteristics and that are specific to the story.
And then once
it's also kind of cursed and not cursed, right? Like if it's really got an affinity in the storyline for a particular player character, are you cursed because you can't get away from it, or is it become part of who you are and you move forward with it?
No, exactly. And plus, there could be a thing that if you actually heal the item by relieving its pain, because it's only a certain thing it has to do, that it becomes your weapon attuned to you, and it loses the retributive part and just becomes a holy avenger.
Yeah. Once the quest is fulfilled, it could be something different.
No, exactly. Exactly. Once it's done, but then again, it could be killing a whole faction of a god. So therefore, it'll never end. No.
Yeah, a life quest that just perpetuates the evolution between the wielder and the weapon. Yeah,
like 15 seasons of Supernatural.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great storytelling device. We don't need to add a bunch of pluses. It becomes about the relationship between the wielder and the item.
Yeah.
That's right.
I agree.
No, that's true.
Should we try one more?
Let's do one more. Let's do one more, and then we can call it a night. I know that I have to work tomorrow.
Do we have a name for it? You guys want to think of a clever name for?
I would just call it a retributive sword. Maybe if it's just a generic item against which you could create many story templates against it, you could almost just call it a retributive template. And then it could be swords, it could be wands, it could be rods, it could be rings, it could be whatever. It's almost a template.
Not necessarily a name for the item, just the basic understanding of the idea.
Retributive magic item here.
Template,
I like that.
And why the DM can place it anywhere in their campaign for anything. And it does,
it could
so.
Yep. And you could nickname it Cardinal Richelieu.
There you go. There you go.
I do like that.
Or Richelieu, the Richelieu Avenger.
Yeah. So I drew trusty Cardinal Richelieu, first time he's ever been trusty, and
drew him from his long rest in my side.
And I'm gonna throw Jeff under the bus, and he's gonna hate me for this, but I'm gonna do it because I can.
Great.
With the time that we have left, and since we've got a little bit of an audience, Jeff, what we're going to do now is we are going to put together the lore and stats, and you can story tell as much as you like about it, of the Shadowlands. Okay. So there's going to be some recall on your part. There's going to be some thinking on your feet. You guys can throw in no NDA this time. Sorry, buddy. It won't save you.
Damn it.
So briefly give the guys the breakdown of what the Shadowlands is, and then if you want to get into the story of how it was created and what it's for, then you can expound. But there's a lot to be said, I think, about the Shadowlands.
Okay, so
it is an item. It's an artifact.
Yes, originally created by Hathor of the Rockhound clan in the Galena Mountains in Faerun, and 25 centuries before he had created the first one. They had built stone ships to travel through through Toril to be able to find the different veins of gold and gems and mithril and things like that. They needed a way to navigate the ship, so they created what's called, and it was a artifact given down by Moradin himself, that they created this lens, which basically it's conical shape, kind of like a well, I say a lens. It was kind of like a cone, So the cone, what it does when it's put in complete darkness, it siphons the darkness into a viscous oil called shadow oil, and the shadow oil, when used on the rocks, the rock ships, make them able to pass through stone like a ship on the ocean. So the rocks just part around it. It isn't that they don't go through them, but it actually pushes the stone out of the way like they're air or water. And to create one takes probably about 60 years to make, and because it's covered with runes from all the different dwarven gods. And once they create it, they create the oil, they paint the ships with it. Then they have to use clerical magic to Moradin or whatever gods they're using, they're praying to for that clan, and they create the magic to actually push the ship through the stone, and then to find these veins of riches. So
now, where the dwarves in particular are concerned, there was a companion item. Do you recall the crown, Jeff?
Oh, you mean the helm of Dagon?
I believe it was the helm of
helm of Dagon or something like that. No, yeah, helm of Dagon was basically a helm that a person would wear as they're at the helm. So it was a hat. It was like a crown. So they would stand on the con of the ship and be able to see into the stone, and they could see where these veins, when they got close enough, they could direct the ship into these different veins to collect the mithril or gold or whatever. But they can't see into caverns. Caverns show up as a large dark area of empty space. So when they see those, they know they have to steer around them. So that's kind of it.
Guys, jump in anytime.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the concept. I mean, I really like the ship, with the runes and the movement through stone.
I wish talk to me about to see that novel.
Because,
yeah, the consequences the consequences in the world setting of dwarves being able to sail through stone.
Yeah.
And
it could be a lost art in a way, in the sense that they can't travel that way today.
Right. Well, the whole thing was, because I did write Redemption. I wrote the novel Redemption for that specifically, and it was lost. The lens was lost for the original Hathor's lens, which is what they called it, because that was Hathor was the forger that made it. So Gadlin decided to recreate to help, because the dwarves had been starting to fall away from the gods at that point, and they needed some way to recommit themselves. And so by creating the lens, an artifact directly handed down by Moradin, was a way that he thought that he could help elevate the dwarven race, or at least their clan. And then that's when he created it. And it turns out that the Drow had known about it and ended up stealing the ship once they painted it, and used it for their nefarious plots.
What kind of ship was it? What kind of what size? How many dwarves did it hold?
It was huge.
There were two.
There was two. One was a dinghy, you might say. One was smaller, but one was like the size of a galleon, and it was created inside this huge cavern. And the Drow that did sneak in, they killed basically all the workers, stole it. They use their priestess power for Lolth to move the ship through, because it had just been coated by the oil, and their goal was to go back to Chavaragust and to reclaim or to claim the first house by killing the matron and ramming the ship basically into the first house and trying to kill everybody.
So from a magic item perspective, is when it was moving through stone, what'd that sound like? Like stone on stone, slowly?
Yeah, like grating like grating stone like you would granite, and it actually created dust. So everything got a fine powder of dust on it. Because like I said, you weren't moving through stone, you were pushing it out of the way, is the whole idea.
And all the dwarves got stone lung and died after a year.
That's right.
Very dangerous.
But yeah, that was the whole concept between of the Shadowlands, was just to create this oil to and I got the idea from the encyclopedia that Stephen did.
Yep.
There's a one little paragraph in there about stone ships, and it was a brief mention, and I was sitting at Dunkin' Donuts at 3 a.m. waiting for dead people to die. Would
they again, a galleon, think of the galleon moving through stone, but maybe over a period of time, like a week, and would they sing songs to get through the time?
They would sing. The clerics would sing to help power it. Now the original Hathar, not Hathar, but Helmir. Is it Helmir or Helgar? I don't remember. It's been so long. I have to go back and read my own book again. Basically created a stone which would house the power to be able to do the ship himself, because when he first built it, he didn't want anybody to touch it. So the priests from Lolth that stole it used their discordant songs to power the ship. It didn't matter who sang; it was just a clerical power. But the guy who built it had a stone that he put into his little dinghy, his little smaller ship, to chase them. And that's what he used to power that ship. But it took the clerics mostly to power the larger ship.
I think one of my favorite parts about the creation of the lens is, one, the process and then the changing of the ship, of the lens over time, because it starts out like a large disc, a flat surface disc, and then over the decades, Gadlin the smith spent crushing the gems and gathering all the particular stones that had to be etched into each individual rune. Just the time spent year after year after year, and then the daily visits from the priest that oversaw every single day in attendance to the creation of what was this round, flat surface that eventually, after decades of toiling and work and all this very meticulous, tiny, itty-bitty, very fine etching and filigree and super, super detail, culminates into this huge faith-driven banging and clanging of hammers and lots of divine magic that eventually goes from something very delicate and fine to something almost very celebratory and warlike in the final shaping of what was a disc into a cone, as it points to it comes to a point at the top and then rounds out to its base. And then immediately after the end of the ceremony, how all of the darkness is just sucked out of the room completely. And it's just as bright as daylight underground, and they have to immediately cover it to keep it from removing any and all darkness, because that's the power of this particular artifact. It just completely removes any and all darkness. Even magical conjured darkness is sucked into the lens, and it just starts to ooze and drip this viscous oil that eventually becomes the coating for the two ships, the Yggdrasil and Yggdravardlin.
Oh my God, you remember the names? Holy shit!
Oh yeah, for sure.
You've got a fan there, Jeff.
It was probably one of my favorite experiences of reading the book. Was just at the beginning of how the lens was created from something very delicate and very tiny little measured movements that were done in one day. They were so small and minuscule that culminated into this final event of creating this flat disc into the cone, and that became the lens. It was
the
really great description.
Just questions around a little bit.
Wow.
That is obviously left an impression on Curry, and I can see it now. That means I got to go read this.
Yeah, you do.
But I think from a question, from a game perspective, right, bringing it into 5e, right, and saying, okay, here it is as a novel item. Anytime we write, and I don't write, so anytime a thing is in a novel, it has heroic, romantic qualities. Epic qualities. How do you bring it into a game and say, hey, I want to bring this into the game? What are bring it back to the whole magic item generation? It's obviously a unique item. It's part of a huge epic sweep. How would we use an item like this in the realms or in a game?
In the game, I don't
know. It's got characteristics. It's got does it have as long as the crew is on board, they don't need food or water. They're sustained.
Mm-hmm. That's
things like that. That's
a neat idea. I like that.
And again, taking it out of the novel context and putting it into the game context.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that idea actually. That there's a sustainability to it like that.
The biggest property I think is that the most obvious one is that it removes darkness, and how that can be employed. Now, mind you, these particular dwarfs, West Galena Mountains, they were subterranean, or at least lived in a cave complex like many dwarves that we know. So dark is pretty common. And when you live in that culture of all kinds of denizens that live in subterranean environs, it's going to be a matter of, well, you remove darkness, you're removing comfort, you're removing concealment.
I mean, it could be at the vanguard of a dwarven army invading, because of the light that it sheds. Anybody that's in daylight, essentially a daylight spell effect, around it.
Correct.
Maybe super enhanced, extra bright,
or extra large, like bigger than what it normally would
do.
For
has a negative impact on those who live in, live underground.
Right.
In the Underdark. So I can see it at the vanguard of a dwarven army or another a good army invading a Drow city, for example. It feels too big for small use.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it would be for big use, epic use.
Practical use inside of like a party environment. Is that the question?
Yeah, I think the question is, could you use it to get from here to there?
I think that you would probably benefit most, not necessarily from the artifact, but basically what it produces. Now, what uses could you find for the shadow oil? How would that be acquired, and then what form and function would that be important to? Would you coat a weapon with it to cleave through a stone elemental? It separates, creates space between rock. Do you use it to pass through walls in a keep that you're trying to break into, because it has that kind of a property? If you're to imbue an item with the shadow oil, I think the more practical use would not necessarily be the artifact, because, and from a player point of view, do you really want to give players an artifact? Probably not.
Maybe not at that level, unless it's
the oil, I think, is
scenario.
probably from a game practicality. How do you use it? That would probably be the more useful item.
So it almost sit like in a big dwarven hall, not necessarily used, almost more like a trophy or a grand monument. And when it's turned on, you're collecting this oil for.
Right.
So the real magic item is the oil.
Right. And then you can sell it. You can even sell it to, or just use it for your army. But it would be a great gift or something you find if you killed a dwarf and they had one of these bottles on them, and you don't know what it is, and you figure out that you could actually, like, if you're a thief, you could it's one of your guys got arrested, is in jail, you could pass him weapons through the stone wall just by coating it, throwing it inside.
So practically whatever it coats, it phases.
Right,
But,
basically, yeah.
But with neat stone side effects of pushing stone aside versus just sliding through it in a phased way.
I think there would have to, like Ed would always want to throw a caveat in here. What's its limitations?
Bingo.
Right.
I would say it's going to have a much diminished use if you're not dwarven, if you're not a cleric, if you don't know any songs. It's going to be very, very limited.
Could have a shelf life, once it's exposed to air or out of a vial, it has a shelf life.
I think a shelf life goes without saying, or they would only ever need to produce the oil once. That it is a diminishing, it's got diminishing returns in regards to how long it lasts.
I'd probably go black and white with that, in the sense of it's good for 24 hours, once it's
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that, because from the dwarven point of view, they're like using this to find veins of gold and mithril and gems.
So
and that's their reward.
Basically, this item, this light, is changing the dark into the shadow residue, or whatever you want to call it, right? So this is dark personified with magical properties, in terms of phasing through stone.
No, I like that. And you could do it where it holds its property until it's used the first time, and then you have a timer on it. So you can't just use a little bit and then wait 6 months. Once you use it and you have some left, now a day later it's going to be 50% as powerful, or doesn't quite work as well as it did.
Like with any oil that's produced, it just wears out over time.
It degrades.
That represents its diminishing return.
Well, it's like a potion almost, in a sense, right? You've got it. It's good as long as it's in the bottle, but then as soon as you put it into the use situation, it's good for 24 hours on the item, or on your armor, or on yourself.
It's not permanent
on your
armor, but it's one of those that as you use it, the scraping away, the moving aside of the stone wears the oil off.
So it has a distance. It has a distance on how far you can travel before you run out. And if you're stuck, you're stuck.
Exactly.
Jeff, could you imagine a whole?
But you push the stone aside, so you're not rephasing in stone. You're truly trapped in a space in the stone that you yourself have created.
Could you imagine a whole troop of battle ragers with
trapped
their
in stone.
armor,
with armor like that,
coated in shadow oil?
They go above where they're going underground, and they drop down through the stone like this.
It's fun. It's kind of creative.
And we're back to drop bears.
That's right.
And it's a fun exercise to try and figure out how it could work in a campaign. Right?
No, and the whole thing too is because when I first started playing D&D, the whole idea of having I have a weapon that I can kill giants with, and you're only 5th level, I can kill giants with this weapon. Now that I've been playing for 40 something years, you look at it and go, what's the best way I can do this without making it a Munchkin type, game where everybody's everybody's maxed out, and
it's very hard to avoid, essentially the OP player. It can be very tough, and
I mean, we had one in our game that he was a shadow thief, and Curry knows who this is. We had a shadow thief, and if he swung, he was so powerful. And this is 4th edition crap. This was 3.5.
This was
3.5. This is 3.5 when they did all the books that came out that pretty much
all the D20 stuff. Yeah,
D20 stuff. And his thief, that when he swung and he missed, if he missed, the creature lost 2 levels. And it was in that book, and I let him use it. And that was my mistake because I didn't read the book. So what did I do? I threw an anti-magic golem at him that ignores all magic, period.
And again, I think what I like most about the magic items we looked at, the 3 that we looked at tonight, is they further storylines, right?
Yes.
That they have, Curry, you did it nicely describing what Jeff had written, that has a romantic or an epic sweep to it, and it engages your imagination, but you use it for a grand thing. Same for the retributive item You know,
Yeah, yeah. There's a
use
purpose
magic
to it.
shield.
It's not that. It's not just that. Oh, look, I killed a guy and he happened to have a ring of infinite wishes on him.
Yeah, none
It
of
makes
this
no
felt
sense.
OP, right? None of this
No,
felt
no,
really
no.
over the
It
top.
did, and then plus we gave it limitations too. Like like the oil. The oil isn't all knowing and all powerful. It's gonna wear out after a while.
Has a distance or a time limit on it.
Right, time limit.
It
Distance.
gains you entrance to a place ultimately. That's all it does.
And
It
not an
gains you
exit.
entrance.
That's right. You have to find your
Yeah.
way out.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I mean, for the purpose of the romantic storytelling, the oil lasted an infinite amount of time for what they were doing. Although they did run into the problems of going through a hole, like a cavern, and didn't know they were going through a cavern until they fell.
And I really like the idea of the ship and the oil. Like the ship is this grand epic thing, and maybe it is a monument in a Dwarven Hall today. And for a grand finale, you get it going, and you go somewhere and you enter the big fight, with kind of some buffs or something like that. But but the oil is ultimately the really useful thing that everybody,
it
almost
really
like they
is.
the ship every day.
Yeah, no, it is, and the oil, and you could really.
Oil.
And the thing is, a charlatan could actually use the oil, older oil, then say, "Oh, this is what shadow oil is," and they sell it, but it's only got limited use because it's already been opened. And it's like, oh, look at this! You just give me 1,000 gold for something that's going to work on your, your shoe, and that's it. So now your foot's stuck in a wall. But but I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. So look what a 21 gave us. Actually, that was the previous item, but it's still pretty.
No,
cool.
but still, no, that was still a cool one. But this is Curry putting me on the spot. I think Curry actually sent you that novel, didn't he?
I think I have it. Yeah, I have to go back.
You have to go if you do read it. Make sure you pass all the areas where I was rewriting it, and some of it won't make sense. So
yeah, well, it's nice. What's neat to take your story and turn it. I mean, I think for players of the game, turning some of these epic ideas into things that could be usable.
Yeah. No, exactly, and I think it's true.
Cool.
It's like it's like when I remember the story that Bob told when he did Regis, and I think it was even Dritz, but he couldn't wait to play them in an actual D&D game, and when he created the character, they died within the first 5 minutes because they were not in his book. I created Regis, and he said he wound up dying on the steps, going to something. He didn't even make it up the steps, and he died.
It's a good parody for full swing to the beginning of this and talking about what makes a good D&D movie.
No, exactly.
That would be a parody of the hero.
Well, what was it? What was one of those shows like Shark Boy and the Lava Girl, or whatever it was?
Yeah.
And they had what was his face? Lord of the Rings, Frodo, was when they were in the
Elijah
game or something.
Wood.
Yeah, Elijah Wood was like was the person to save them. He's glowing and all this stuff, and he does one thing and then dies. It's like it's the same thing. You can't your characters don't do good in a game.
It was like Bill Murray in Zombieland or whatever too.
Yeah.
It has the cameo. And
then... exactly.
A zombie all these years and he gets killed.
Yeah, you had him, but look what happened. But yeah, that's it's true. I mean, I can imagine if you tried to play a Elminster, Ed, that would be like ridiculous.
It's actually hilarious because too many dungeon masters say, "Oh, let's kill off Elminster at the table. That'll be fun."
Well, I actually did that.
Yeah, and the problem is it isn't, because it ruins the game.
He's a narrative device, right?
Yeah.
He's a plot. He forwards the plot. But I did that as a plot tool. Where
I walked around with the head of Elminster, like the head and shoulder of Elminster in
the bag of holding. And
you
every once in a while they would
in the world.
That's right.
He'd
open it to ask the question, and every time he'd open it was that much more rotted. And it's like, what do we do now, Elminster? But yeah, so he used it as a plot forwarding device, but not as the.
I think it's okay when it becomes a parody. If things a parody, I can live with it.
Jeff would be like, Jeff Curry, your bag of holding is mumbling.
It was. It's like they'd be spending 30 minutes trying to figure something out. And I'm like, you're mumbling coming from Rebecca Holding.
Poor Elminster. There he is.
There he is. There he
Poor
is.
Well,
Oh God, this was fun, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Ed and Grant, for the first time. This was great.
that was great fun. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. And Curry and everybody, and when Matt was here, this is I love doing this. We got to start doing it more often now that our lives are kind of more settled down.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I'm not the one that's writing 30 books in one time. So
In one weekend, they're all due Monday. I think he's
Yeah.
writing as he speaks to us right now.
he is.
And-
He is.
and
It's like
Grant,
this.
I want to say thank you for the show, for kind of taking the reins on some things while we were trying to figure out some sound issues. I really do appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you so much. But we got it figured out. I am going to put this onto YouTube. So most of the people, at least on Twitch, we had quite a few people here watching it, which was nice. But I'll get it on YouTube, and there's still people watching there. Hey,
Hi guys.
It's nice to be on a show with friends. I appreciate that.
it is. Yes, I enjoy it. Thank you so much, and we'll do it again soon. We'll just check out Ed's schedule, and Grant, we'll hope you come back and play with us again.
If you let me, sure.
Of course. Are you kidding? Of course.
So we're at least we're talking April right away. Because
Yeah, no.
GaryCon.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, April is good, but are you going to GaryCon, Grant?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not going to anything until next year, to Gen Con. And
I
George
might
will be
show up
going.
some of these.
So.
Ed was talking earlier about some of the Canadian, and I I don't live far from Ed, a couple hours away, so I'm Canadian too.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
And we look just like you.
That's right.
That's
We're
right.
evading the great Canadian conspiracy. So
That's right.
yeah, so I might show up at one of the games with Ed at some point. Just show up and he'll go like, "Grant, is that you?"
No, that's
Yeah.
good.
Will
And
That would be so cool.
Will we see you in May, Grant?
I don't know. The dates may not work for me.
Okay.
I'm traveling.
I'm looking at just to let you know, we're looking at the end of May. We're talking about March, April, May 20, probably May 23rd through the 30th, the 31st, around that week. The reason I'm saying that is that's a day I don't have to take off. So the 23rd, I'm not working. We may fly in the 23rd on the Tuesday, and then fly out on the next Tuesday.
Okay. If I can, I will, but I think I'm traveling. So
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll miss you.
Well, we
Maybe
had
we'll
such
get-
a good time the last time.
last time, yeah, it was
Oh,
good.
I
We particularly
know.
that little restaurant. I was making a joke about the one restaurant within 40 minutes of Ed, but that was actually a lot of fun to go there. And
It was.
It
became
was.
our favorite. It was a really good time.
No,
Oh,
especially the cheese curds, and then I think the waitress wanted your phone number too. So
No, the Ed's phone number, not mine.
but
But I think so. We
Mm.
introduced the other nice thing was introduce you guys, Curry and Jeff, to Tim Hortons and to
Yes.
Yeah.
to other Canadian fare. Burger
Yes.
Priest.
Well, that's why. Oh, the Burger Priest. Oh my God, guys out there who's listening, if you get a chance to go to Burger Priest, oh my God.
Yeah. That'll shut you down real quick.
Oh my God, I'm surprised we stayed awake from driving from
Yeah.
Toronto to Ed's house.
Yeah.
It was absolutely bloating.
It was good.
Bloating. I love that. There you go. There's a rousing
Food recommendation.
for Canadian cuisine. Bloating.
No, the reason I
Come to
say
Canada
that-
and bloat.
Basically, the reason I say it is it was a hamburger. The buns were two pieces of bread that were put together with cheese in between them. So you had a cheese bun on top, a cheese bun on the top, on the bottom, and you had about a pound of shit in the middle of it that was so delicious, and that it was surrounded by a swamp of fries that you could not possibly finish this thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
a
$13.
swamp of fries.
It was huge. And it was so good that I told Curry we should do our own Burger Priest in the States. So
That was pretty serious.
yeah,
That's
we'll
pretty
have to hit it
serious.
again. We'll hit it again with the ladies when we go up in May. We'll stop by and get it on the way. So watch everybody explode.
Well, For the record, Grant, we're gonna miss your best, worst black licorice of all time.
Oh damn! I should have brought
Oh.
that. This is the Danish licorice, the strong stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Man.
also Dutch.
No, it wasn't. It was ammonia in hard form. Is all
It
it was.
was.
It was ammonia. I tell you,
It has
it took-
periodically been banned.
it took the
countries.
layers of skin off of my tongue.
It was
Okay,
serious.
that's probably why my
And-
tooth cracked a year later.
Let me tell you, you left it behind on my kitchen trivet,
Oh no!
and it vanished within a month.
Oh,
Are
somebody
you
liked it.
serious?
Yeah.
There are people who like it.
Yeah.
I count
enjoyed
myself
it.
one of them.
I enjoyed it.
Well, you notice how I said it tasted. I still had several pieces.
Oh yeah.
I didn't stop eating
just
it.
swinging back to the Burger Priest, I think the one you're talking about is called the Vatican.
The Vatican, yes, that's what I had.
I'm not sure how many.
Is that the one with the grilled cheese sandwiches on top?
It's
and
the
bottom?
grilled
Yes.
cheese sandwiches on the
Yeah.
top and bottom.
And it was
Definitely.
like it didn't give a calorie count. It just said call your cardiologist.
1,340 calories. It is
Oh, that's
crazy.
it?
That's
Oh, I
it.
could've
That's what it
sworn it
says.
was more.
13.
Oh, you
Wow.
can have 3 of them.
I thought it was
Wow.
definitely more than that.
I do
Okay.
think it's kind of a deathbed
Oof.
Oh my god, it was so good.
food item, you know.
Oh,
A
my
once
god.
a year thing.
So if it was a magic item,
If it was a magic
Here
item.
we go.
Mystic would it?
the bloating burger of
The
Shantae.
bloat.
The love handle of everlasting.
That's right. Every time you drink water, it reconstitutes in your stomach.
Oh,
This is too funny.
I think Monty Python's already done that.
It's the bishop.
I'm serious.
Oh,
Okay.
dear.
I am cutting this off. I'm cutting it off at the testicles right now.
Have a good night. Thank you so
So,
much.
so
no.
everybody, thank you so much for coming again. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'm glad we
Thank
got the
you for
stream
that
finally.
visual image.
Hey, Twitch, thanks for hanging in there with us. We appreciate
Yeah, thanks, Twitch. We really appreciate y'all hanging in while we got our technical stuff out of the way. So hopefully next time it won't be as bad. But thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time.
you. Good night, guys.
All right.
Good night.